Hey guys, welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. In today's episode, I have a really special guest. His name is Abhishek Sharma. He's the founder of Athletes Today. And so he's basically a sports agent who runs an agency who deals not only in representing players, but does a bunch of other things as well, like working in the grassroots system. In this conversation, I think we only touched about his work in agency for the last 15 minutes as such, of being a football agent. But then the vast majority of our conversation was very free flowing, that even though I would have wanted to get into his agency stuff earlier, I think we we tangentially went into conversations about the structural problems rather in Indian football and sports as a whole, which was fascinating in itself because Abhishek has some really interesting thoughts around that area, and obviously it's something I think about as well. I mean, I think that's what a good conversation is, in my opinion. That it's very free flowing. So even though I'd like to get some things across in the conversation, things I'd like to ask my guest, that may not necessarily always be the case because we may move down a particular tangent or a particular topic area that may interest me and may interest, let's say, the conversation we're having at the time. So obviously, I've requested Abhishek to come on at a future point as well to discuss probably his agency side of the things and how he represents players. But this conversation was fascinating in itself. We talked a lot about the structure of Indian football, as well as our love for Liverpool, and let's say the philosophy in which we view the game, which was truly fascinating. So without further ado, here's my conversation. Hey Abhishek, welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Shan. So I'm looking forward to this.
No, so am I. Just for the viewers and the listeners, a little bit about yourself. Maybe can you walk us a little bit about your journey, the work you do currently, and yeah.
Yeah, okay. Um, so I basically run a sports management agency in Mumbai. I've been into sports management for the past 8 years now. I started as a student and I continued. I think and I've worked in different sectors in sports and things like that. So yeah, that's been my journey. I am now people call it the sports agent and
Hmm.
all of that. Yeah, but yeah, I run a small team who's into player management. We do sponsorship, we do sports licensing, character licensing, and things like that, and grassroots.
Right.
So, so yeah, this is what we do, and sports been the it's been the way of life for me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't want to sound too silly here, but like something I think about often when it comes to sport is just the most fundamental question. Like, what is sport in that sense? Like, what do you think it is? Like, do you think about that?
Yeah, I've
Like, I'm sorry, you work in it, obviously.
yeah, yeah.
No,
I've
but like at its most basic level, like what do you think it is? Do you think it's an activity? Do you think it's a way of life? Like, what do you think it is?
I see as per the age and everything that I've grown, I've asked myself this question again and again. So the same question maybe I asked when I was 12 years old,
Uh,
to when I was 20, to now I'm 29, and all of that. So um, I think sports is for me it's a purity. In the most purest form. It gives you happiness for me. So I think sports, uh, not only it has to be a physical activity. Like earlier, it was different. Now, like e-gaming is also, it
huh.
gives purity and happiness and things like that. You're not really physically involved and things like that. So for me, it would be just pure, honest form of happiness. So it has like you like there are times where you find happiness in defeat also. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So sports brings that, yeah, and it's a way of life for me. So,
Yeah.
I can relate to anything that I do in life,
Through
to
sport.
sports.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So you touched upon it being like almost one of the most essential cogs in your life in that sense. But um, like, can you speak a little bit about, let's say, your early influences? Now, these could be teams you perhaps watched, sports you perhaps watched, or do you think it has to come from even watching teams or watching sports or players for that matter, or could it even come from, let's say, playing a particular activity? and not so much playing it, yes, of course, that too, but with, let's say, your group of friends, and that's your initial hook into sports, and then you start loving it. Like what was your particular drive?
I think for me was I wasn't a brilliant student academically. I was very average. Um, so for me was I would look forward to going and playing because I belonged on the field more than I belonged to a classroom,
Right.
to be really honest. And I would, and what it did for me was now it shows later on in life, it shows a lot more. Um, it gave me skills that I didn't think that I would have in a classroom, you know. So like when I would be on the field, I was a leader. I would work very cohesively with my friends. I would understand emotions a lot more better. I think people open up while playing sports a lot more compared to when they're doing different activities.
Hmm.
Like for a musician, it could be very different because
Yeah.
it's very heartfelt and that's a different activity altogether. So I think sports is also a very creative way how you grow. So for me, it was I would every day look forward to a free period where I could go play on the field,
Yeah.
or I would look for my break time where I could go play. And after school, I would play, or I would come back home, finish my classes, and then start playing again.
Yeah.
So I think that played a very important factor. Knowing कि yes, मतलब मैं ना field में belong करता हूँ. Like I feel very comfortable on the
Mhm.
field, than to be in a classroom. So I think that's where the kicking started. Oh, मतलब I look forward to playing for 1 hour. It could
Yeah.
be anything. That
Yeah.
could be anything. Like it could be football, it could be cricket, it could be rugby, it could be book cricket, it could be
Mm.
anything,
Yeah.
like or going to the jungle gym or doing whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So, uh, in relation, so when you talk about these aspects of, let's say, picking up attributes through sport, be it whatever, leadership for that matter,
Correct.
teamwork, or anything for that matter, any of these attributes, do you think so? Often, many of these, so many in the pedagogical space, in the education space, are talking about, let's say, adapting with not only the pandemic, but let's say the newer generation who perhaps is more comfortable staying at home and even getting their education through a laptop screen or something like that. Often
Mhm.
people have even spoken that obviously people understand through the pandemic people are at home and getting their education through the laptop or something of that sort, but even in the long term, maybe there may be several schools where it may perhaps be logistically difficult for students to travel in, for them to open it up through a virtual basis. Like my qualm to that always has been that, and I think you've touched upon it in some sense in relation to sport, that obviously the education is there in the classroom which you can get virtually, but then there are quite a few things that you can't grasp onto because you have to be there in the physical space.
Correct.
And this could be in the pedagogical way because a teacher or an educator has been taught to deliver to, let's say, physically in that sense, where they have children in front of
Correct.
them and they're educating them,
Correct.
but also on a level of, let's say, the students being there, learning the subject or whatever, but also communicating with their friends, and that in itself helping them work in a social contract in society, which later on
Correct.
helps them in society.
Correct.
So what do
Correct.
you think about that? Because to some extent, even if education goes online, the fact that so many kids aren't getting the opportunity to play right now with
Mm.
their, even in the colonies, because some colonies aren't even allowing that particular
Correct.
basis. What do you make of that? Because on a psychological level, I think that's very
See,
detrimental.
it's a very tricky situation currently, also with the pandemic and
Yeah.
everything. See, I've always, I don't know, I've always tried to understand when there are two sides of the, like a lot of people having a lot of debate around like uh, academics is the most important way to help a kid secure a very good future. Um, for me, like I said, it has to be a very good balance. What happens is there are times where kids can excel maybe in the classroom, and there are kids who are different psychologically. It's very different.
Hmm.
Someone might be a good student or have potential, but they don't really open up sitting in a classroom
Right.
because they have a lot of questions and things like that. Whereas when you're on the field, uh, when you're put in a team, So there's a massive teamwork which is around it. There are lots of give and takes that you take from there. When you win, there's a different type of celebration and joy. When you lose, there's a different type of togetherness that it brings you to. So I think these small type of things, when kids are taught at a very young age, play a very important part later on when they're there in the society doing different things in life. So currently, the situation for me is also kids are learning at home, but I would really think that parents who have been sportsmen and who play at some form or anything, they should really interact with the kid and keep it very active. Like
Yeah.
how we've grown up knowing that you go to school and fit, as kids you do your homework and you prepare for the next day. I think sports should also be something like that. Suppose if I learned how to kick a football,
Mm-hmm.
and next day I should do a little homework on how do I receive the football,
Yeah.
or how do I pass it to someone. So I think these are small things where in the current scenario, where at least I think parents at home should put in a decent effort trying to somehow make them do small things. I get it. It can't be like it's difficult for kids to go out in the colonies and
Yeah.
play downstairs with their friends and all that. But I think parents can play a very important role in this. Even just playing hide and seek at home,
Huh.
like
Yeah.
it's not matlab, at a smaller age. Let me also clarify, technical nahi hona chahiye. It shouldn't be so technical about thing. It should be more about togetherness. So in the most simple logic, my father, mother and I don't come togetherness
Hmm.
while studying or solving a maths problem. you know that could also be in some families, but for mine, like, it won't. But the togetherness comes in, suppose late in the evening after dinner my parents want to play rummy. so
Yeah.
so like these are small things where I don't know, that togetherness could, the parents should really look into it, because just making the kids sit in front of the laptop and whatever
Mm-hmm.
they are processing, there should be some form of activity. And this is a very good time, because a lot of family members are together. This is a very good time for people to do different things.
No, that's for sure. And I think I'm a big proponent of this myself, like with the few conversations I've had in this space with
Hmm.
coaches and educators of that sort. This is something as I said, I propagate that technical knowledge, in my opinion, has to come later. Like you have to almost start with the fundamentals of movement skills, and then you
Correct.
can sort of apply that to any context, really, if you're
Correct.
looking at sports, right?
Correct.
And even when you, in my opinion, just sticking on this point because we've brought it up, if you start off with the technicalities and try to shoehorn a particular person into, let's say, a technique,
Hmm.
what if on the off chance there have been so many of these sports individuals around the world who've almost taken a very unconventional way of playing a
Correct.
particular shot in cricket,
Correct.
or dribbling in a particular manner, which is something
Correct.
you'd negate on its own if you start, let's say, shoehorning
Correct.
a person at a young
Correct.
age. Yeah.
Correct. It has to be, again, it has to come very naturally. The thing
Yeah.
is, with all these people who've gotten the different route, not only just
Huh.
technical and everything, the key thing's been that they've loved what they do. So as a
Yeah.
kid, you self-discover a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Like,
it. Yeah. Self
yeah,
discovery.
yeah,
That's the word. Yeah.
yeah. So I think self-discovery is the best way. Again, it doesn't have to be technical. It just has to be movement, move around, like you
Huh.
correctly said. And then it becomes like, then whosoever wants to take it whatever
Huh.
way,
Right. Of course.
then it becomes,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, like luckily, like some of the academies I've worked in, obviously in the West, it's very popular, this this self discovery model, not only in coaching platforms but also physical education programs in
Mm.
India as well. So like I worked at Baichung Bhatia Football School, so they have a very strong emphasis on this particular model of allowing the children, because I think they're one of the best programs in terms of coach education in the country, and like they focus
Yeah,
heavily on
yeah,
this matter of allowing kids to almost express themselves on the pitch and see where it goes.
correct. Correct. Correct.
So something I wanted to almost touch base on, because we talked about what sport is in that, for that matter, and you talked about several things, but like something I took away was, let's say, this aspect of community, coming together, togetherness,
Yeah.
and those sorts of things, starting to love the sport particularly. But what do you think it is though? Because I feel like people who are into sport are like so into sport, like they're almost married to it, if that makes sense. Like in the teams they support, like they're
Correct.
very, it's so, like many sports sociologists have called modern day sport to be a form of church. And what that means is that there'll be so many of these uncles, let's say in the West or in India as well. So if you're looking at the
Mm,
West, I think I mentioned this in another podcast, that
mm.
they wouldn't go to the church, but they would definitely go on a Saturday to watch their football team and support them.
Correct. Correct.
And obviously they might have started off with a love of football, but it almost grows up to become a sense that yes, you like the sport, but also it's a coming together where you get to interact with, let's say, like-minded people who support the
Correct.
same team, support the same
Correct.
cause, which I think
Correct.
I'm trying to focus in on here. So what do
Correct.
you think that is? Like, why do you think, is it because we almost, as individuals, as human beings, want to be married to a cause? Like we want to always have this sense of meaning to our life, and sport gives that to some people.
I think that's true. Yeah, like I honestly think, and more than marriage, I think the word I think I would go for, like, sports is more like romance, and romance doesn't get old, you know. So
But is it,
so
isn't isn't marriage the right word? Because like with
it's
sport
there. It
even,
has ups and
yeah.
downs. I get it. Yeah, you know,
We're
I
Liverpool
get it.
fans, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, but I think it's
Yeah, romance dies out pretty early.
yeah, no, again, depends from
Yeah,
depends. Romance is a very subjective word,
I
so
guess. Yeah.
again, depends on the definition of romance you say. So I think even what I mean is, it has to maybe initially start off as romance, and then again, romance is something which is there in marriage, which is there not there in marriage, which is it's something like I choose that word myself.
Right.
So you know, so. Now there are goods and bads to it also, you know, because if you're too romantic, you can be heartbroken very easily, and I hope you know that as a Liverpool fan what happens. So that aspect is also there, but then you also because you love it so much, you recover also faster. You know,
Hmm.
I'm heartbroken today, and tomorrow something else comes out, and tomorrow is a new day, and I feel, oh yes, I
Yeah.
still love
You're
you,
still
you know.
optimistic.
Yes, I still love you, man, like, you know,
Yeah,
regardless of
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So that is there. To be really honest, or the actual question that you asked was, I think sports brings us together. You get a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
you know, which is, I think, the key. The sense of belonging comes in, and especially, how does sport do it better than anything else,
Yeah, pretty
you know,
much.
apart, yeah, better than anything else, easily, and maybe music also.
Huh.
um,
But even then, I don't know. Yeah.
Correct, but music also, you have, like, yeah, it could be a
Like
different
I
take
don't
on
think a
it.
fest like I don't think a festival is as big as like a, like in my estimation, the biggest event in the world is the
Is the
FIFA World
FIFA
Cup
World
final.
Cup
For
is the
sure, like
biggest
hands
event
down.
on
You
the
can't,
planet.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't, like, no, you can't even compare it to anything else.
Correct.
So
Correct.
yeah.
So I think what happens is, you get a sense of belongingness, and also one more thing it happens is, there's no structure to it, and the thing is, sports. The reason why you love sports is, it's not for the rich or the poor. You know, there are no
Yeah.
barriers. There's no class system.
uh,
Like there is no religion system.
Hierarchy, no, nothing.
There
Yeah.
is no hierarchy. There's no matlab, oh, because you're Hindu or Muslim or
Hmm.
Jewish or whatever. You know, it doesn't have those barriers. It doesn't have to be, oh, you're a Brahmin or you're blah blah blah. You know,
Hmm.
it doesn't have that. It also, what it does is bring nations together as well. So there are no borders again. Like I'll give you an experience. Like, I'd gone to see a game in Indonesia while I was traveling in 2017. And I went there to maybe build a connection with a club.
Hmm.
Uh, it's called Bali United. Okay, so I met the folks from the management. I met the CEO. I spoke to them, understood the club a lot more better, and I remember I got in touch with one of the fans saying, "I want to come see the game. You know,
Oh
can
yeah.
I can I be a part of it?" And I don't know. I think it's the wildest atmosphere. I felt like I'm one of them. And the thing is, it's not only about me supporting Bali United, but they had all gone there to watch a good football match, which
Hmm.
is the most important fundamental. Like,
Do
so
you think,
it's the sport itself.
not to cut you off there, but do you
Yeah,
feel at some, yes, I think that's a very big driving factor, obviously the sport that's being witnessed. But do you think an even bigger thing, I don't know if it's a bigger thing or maybe to the same estimation, is the atmosphere there? So I know, so we talked
of
about, let's say, the
course.
FIFA World Cup final, or even some of these clubs, like we support Liverpool, and I think
Mm,
major reason for me supporting Liverpool, obviously the football and stuff, but a stronger thing is the connect it has to the community, that even though
yeah,
it's, let's say, one of the biggest clubs in the world, they're
yeah,
still to their roots, and there's like the scouse element is still there, and that's something that they hold close to their hearts.
correct.
So like,
Correct.
so
So I
I've
think,
spoken.
yeah, all that, like you said, no, all that also plays a very big
Huh,
angle to it. The reason
right.
I also support Liverpool, even if like they weren't doing well, I've been supporting for like 16, 17 years now. Uh,
Pretty grim,
yeah, it's
of late
incredible.
it's good, but
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So the thing is, I think because of the fans and the atmosphere and
Huh,
the things I would hear. So
yeah.
when I was a kid and I would hear, and I would get a senior or someone like that, and or a elder brother or someone who's come and said, oh, you support Liverpool.
Yeah.
Fans are crazy, man. Like, and I would be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Fans are crazy. Yeah. So I think all of that also plays a part of the history of why you
Huh,
want to support it and love it.
yeah.
Why you want to be a part of it. Even in Calcutta, if you there are wars, man.
Yeah.
Football
Genuinely,
clubs,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
correct. So I think it's a sense of culture. It's a sense of
I
belongingness.
think
It's a sense
belonging
of
most of all,
community.
yeah.
Yeah, and the sense of that community. And the thing is, um, I for me, I think sports is like, I get it when the West says it's still very discriminatory in a lot of levels and things like that. But for me, I believe it's the, like I said, it's the purest, because
Yeah.
again, like,
If you're good,
um,
you're in, yeah.
a kid from the slums can become the biggest star.
Yeah.
You know, So like when we talk about Maradona and where he's from and things like that, like, who the hell ever
Yeah.
knew who the biggest star in the world, or you take about any of these big
Yeah.
people. You never see a rich man's kid becoming
Hmm.
a rich corporate son who's a very good football player. No, it doesn't happen. I think Morata is the only example which is there,
Hmm.
I think, in the global level, or who comes from a very wealthy family or whatever. But it doesn't happen. So that's the thing, where sports as a community, as a society, it gives you equal opportunity.
Yeah.
So you have a level playing ground.
Hmm.
Now it doesn't have to be, do you come for training in a Mercedes, or do you
Huh.
walk it and come to training, or do
See,
you take a
even
bus?
Abhishek, with that, even like, even if, let's say, there is some sort of inequality in the sense that if someone is of a wealthy background, they can probably afford better boots, or let's say come in a
Correct.
car to training, but still,
Correct.
like, they have to put it in, like they still have to put the effort
Of
in. So
course.
even if,
Of
let's say, a
course.
person who is coming from the slums is putting the same effort is able to sustain it, then like if the corporate kid can sustain it, then well and good, like then he's going to make it, right?
Yeah.
But that's not
Correct.
obviously not genuinely
Yeah.
the case.
See, I think is the people who come from the lower side of the background, and why they become big stars is their experiences apart from the sport generally in life is
Huh.
eye opening. Abhi, some South Bombay rich kid has no idea about, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
that I have to walk it, or I have to go back, and this is the time and effort that I have to put in, the struggles at home or whatever. I'm still trying
Hmm.
to chase my passion and things like that. So I think that plays it's rather an advantage to
Yeah.
people who are, because they learn a lot, which is apart from them chasing their dreams. They learn every day on various different angles.
Juggle several
uh,
things on the same time.
correct. So I think that is there. And like I said, sports overall globally, like I said, when I was there, I felt like I'm a Bali United supporter. It was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think sports overall everywhere, it just brings everyone together. And also it's not especially in the Calcutta culture I've seen, sports has never been even gender bias,
Hmm.
especially in the culture, maybe in Goa as well. Uh, there are equal amount of women supporters who are there for these clubs as there are men.
Yeah.
So, I know of my friends who are, Bengalis supporting the club for more than 60 years.
Wow.
The grandmothers have come and spoken to us, and they get very, when we were kids, they would get very emo about, who do you support and things like that. So I think that, like, that overall has,
Yeah.
played a
Because through
very big
generations, it's been that way, right? Like at
generation,
homes.
and it's just not come from the male or
Huh. Right.
that side of it. It has been, there are so many women fans, and they are also equally hardcore. Like, they wouldn't look for a boyfriend who's an East Bengal supporter,
Uh,
whatever, or have that. These are crucial important things. It
yeah.
doesn't matter if you work or what job you have, but who do you support
Who do
is
you
important.
support, bro? Like, what color are you wearing?
Yes, what color are you wearing? So, is it maroon and green, or what is it, and things like that. So I think, yeah, that adds like a spice to all of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you touched upon this aspect, and this is something I find so fascinating when you talk about, let's say, people coming from underprivileged backgrounds and making it in sport in that sense. Like, what do you have to speak to that? Because like we support Liverpool, so something I've heard a lot, especially with Brazilian players and those sorts of things. So Firmino talks about this, and the people who've really made it at the highest level, who've come from
Sadio
Brazil.
Sadio
Yeah,
Mane.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they play on like streets, like brick streets, where like if you fall, you basically like injure your knees and this, that, whatever. But I think that's very fundamental in almost I don't know, like just making you as a player. Because what I feel is that in the West, and even in, let's say, metro cities in India, with the training camps and those sorts of things, we're making things very soft, or at
Mm,
least from what I've seen. I don't know what you would have to comment to that, but just to stick to that, like in the sense that I don't know if you know about this, but there, I know it's much more in the West. In India, I don't know how much it started to propel, but there's things like participation trophies which are given out. So often, what
mm,
happens in USA, and I'm not sure in UK, but so there are, if there's a soccer game going on between under six, under sevens, or something like that,
mm, mm,
they don't
mm,
keep score because they
mm,
believe that it would disenfranchise one group from, let's say, participating in the sport long term or whatever. But I just take a different model of looking at it. So there's this psychologist John Piaget who's written a lot about developmental psychology and those sorts of things. So he says that a driving factor has to be that you improve, and if you don't tell, so even if you are a kid, let's say on an under sevens pitch playing with your mates, like what's your incentive of doing well if like the scores aren't kept and like both sides are given the participation trophy and things like
mm.
that. So what do you think about these things?
Yeah, of course, at the grassroots level,
Yeah, yeah.
I've, I've dedicated my life to the grassroots development side of things, and I passionately believe in it. Um, I studied the Uruguayan model, uh,
Hmm.
the South American model, and things like that, of how do you start grassroots, because India is quite a lot like South America, a lot of those countries like that, because you're not really developed, but you're not really underdeveloped. You're maybe in between.
Yeah, big inequalities. Yeah.
Correct. They are coffee lovers. They are tea
Hmm.
lovers.
Yeah.
They, their stories and uh, the craziness and the support that their people have is the same that we have. The nation goes wild when there's a cricket match or things like that. So that thing is with quite similar. So see, I really think is, more than the trophies and all of that, in those form of incentives. Um, at an early age, what is the key is, you, again, like I said, it doesn't have to be technically this
Hmm.
thing for you. The first thing that the kid has to do is enjoy the sport. Like, suppose if it's competitive under 6, 8, 10, 12, or whatever categories you're looking at is, um, the reaction for the kid has doesn't have to be that, hey, I'm going to go win, or I will get a medal, or things like that.
Right. Yeah.
The reaction has to be more like forcing their parents, saying, today is a Saturday and I have to go play with my friends. Today I'm going to meet Ishan, who I haven't met during the week.
Mm-hmm.
Ishan studies in a different school, I study in a different school, but we both come to the same academy to train. So I look forward to, I tell my dad, okay, no, it's Saturday, you have to wake up and it's my training and I have to meet Ishan, I have to meet my boys and I have to play. So that has to be the first angle, that the kids have to be taught. It shouldn't be very technical.
Hmm.
You could have incentives, but those incentives could be in a very different format.
Right.
Like, it doesn't only have to be, oh, you participated or you won, which is, it works for different places and doesn't work in different places. I think at a younger age, focus purely has to be going out and being there with the people that you enjoy the sport or whatever the most. So there are different takes to it.
Yeah.
I think my internet is.
No, you
Am
dropped
I?
off. You dropped off for a bit, but now you're back.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, it's different takes for different places because the societies are different. The American society is very different
Yeah.
compared to the South American society or the European society or the Asian society. So society plays a very big role. At least for India, what I've seen is, um, you have to more than the, like, the kids also playing a part. I think you need to educate the parents around it, because
Hmm.
ultimately that 5 or 6 year old himself or herself is not going to come, right?
Huh.
So the parents has to feel ke, oh, it's
Huh.
my weekend off, I don't have work, 90% of people working. So I have to wake up early to take my kid to the training, and like people don't do that. I've seen these, like, these questions have come up to me saying, oh, I had a day off, I didn't want to bring you,
Mhm.
or whatever. So I think once the parents get an idea of it, and then also, which I really believe, there has to be a parent and kid engagement. So suppose there's a football match between under 6 and under 6 or whatever, there should be a tiny football match between all the kids' ka fathers and the kids. You know,
Yeah.
so that what happens is, it has to be more of like, now for them it shouldn't be like, oh,
You have to
it's like
drop your kid off at training. It's more that
correct.
you're invested. Yeah.
Correct. Even you're investing, and the more you get invested, trust me, it's a very psychological thing. Once you get more invested, once your kid also sees you do things, or
Huh.
they pick up things from you.
Yeah.
Because the coach can only take it a certain way, but like as a parent, they will look at you in a very different way. So
Hmm.
that I think is the key, and society in general. So I think for grassroots developments, initially, first stop solution is, they have to enjoy it.
Hmm.
Like, it has to be. I look forward to meeting Ishan on every Saturday.
Yeah.
Matlab, I have no. You are in a different school. You stay in a different locality. I stay in a different
It
school,
doesn't
different
matter.
locality. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I want to meet Ishan in 2 hours. We're going to play, and then we're going to chit chat. फिर मैं उसे अपना टिफिन खिलाऊंगा, वो अपना
Hmm.
खिलाएगा, and X Y Z. So it has to be that.
Yeah. So Abhishek, you touched upon the European model. So I'm aware of it, but then there are going to be several viewers and listeners who, let's say, aren't so well versed with it. But so could you take some time and, let's say, talk about the European model and what it actually is?
I will touch base
Yeah.
because I could then go on details. I'd love to, but that would be, I don't know, some master class or something like that. And I hope I get paid for it. So yeah. so I'll tell you, like, a Belgium model. Okay, something I will touch on. For Like, I really like their concept, and which a few companies in India are trying to do and things like that. So in the Belgium model, like, I'm sure, I don't know how many people who follow a lot of football, or the listeners who are aware of it. If you watch a lot of football, you must be seeing that how Belgium has done in the last decade. Okay, now, if you've invested enough time to find out why they have done well, you would really know the answer.
Hmm.
So in the Belgium model, what happens is, you're only technically taught a few matrix as a kid. So it's not important for them who's the goal scorer, or
Right.
or things like
Okay.
that. So what is important for them is simple: pass the ball, receive the ball, and pass the ball again.
So get the fundamentals right. Yeah.
Get your fundamentals accurately right. So it doesn't matter. So what I like about them is they don't compete on the grassroots level knowing if team A beat team B by 4-0 or 4-2 or 3-2 or whatever be the scoreline. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a scoreline based this thing. It's more about uh, did you pass the ball accurately? Did you now can you dribble the ball and can you receive the ball? Like basic fundamentals that come into place. So for them, what happens is now I have learned how to receive the ball. Once I receive the ball, now I will try going past one player, maybe how can I dribble, and then I pass the ball again. So these the core concepts are very, very strong. Now, what happens is all these top Belgian players, you take it from any of the top, be it Eden Hazard, be it Vincent
Mm.
Company, be it, you can name like Lukaku, blah blah blah. There's so many of them. Vermaelen when he was there, brilliant. Like I thought he was one of the best defenders.
Mm.
So that grassroots model is very good. They don't really care about the top league structure.
Yeah.
So for them it doesn't, like they don't want to compete with the Premier League or the La Liga or any of that. They want to keep developing kids in that angle. Now this is the Belgian model. It is very different to a Dutch model.
Mm.
Dutch model is super technical. Technique. So they want to specialize on your technical along with the fundamentals. Your technical ability has to be really, really good. So I'm a die-hard fan of Cruyff.
Oh yeah,
Um,
same. I think he's a revolutionary. Like I think yeah.
he's the godfather of
Yeah.
modern football. He's the
Actually, yeah.
godfather of football, and
Yeah.
how he's changed. Like
I don't
if
think, just taking on that, not to get too fanboy, but the thing is, like, I don't think there's ever been a player who's been so proficient. Like, I think there's this quote. I'm not sure who said, was it Lineker or probably Pep Guardiola, who said that if you put Cruyff on any of the outfield positions, he'd be as good at any of them. If that makes
yeah,
sense. And
yeah.
also, not only that, but also just a thinker about the game.
Yeah,
Like,
so I think what he's contributed to football, not only as a player, as a human being,
oh
as
yeah,
a I don't know. Yeah, it's been massive. Like
yeah.
I don't know if there was a
So
award for
I
like
have his book. I think he's one of my favorite sports books I've read, like about him. I don't know if you've read his Cruyff My
one
Turn.
second, hold on. 1 second, I will just come back. I read
Yeah.
it 2 years ago.
No, but
Yes.
it's so fascinating, like about like just reading about his journey and like since when he started thinking about the game in such a way as well. Like I don't know if
Like I said, like I think I've reread it more than 10, 12 times. Yeah, because there are times where I want to find answers, not in terms of answers, but
something you're thinking about me. Yeah.
yes, but just to read
Uh,
what क्या thought process है यार, why have you given your life to it? Once you're done with football as a player, people do different things,
huh.
but the type of impact that he's had
Yeah.
is like everyone. So like I said, I think he's the godfather of football, and how he's changed the way football is played in the current scenario. And he's also been influenced by different people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think for me also, like I said, I think that development angle, what he takes in, like, suppose his most simple philosophy is all 11 players contribute
Huh. Total
and
football.
can play total football and can play different. So imagine when you're playing at the grassroots level and you play that. So there is no
Huh.
this thing ke, matlab,
You're this, you're that.
You're only the striker and
Hmm.
you are only the goalkeeper, or you're this. So it's create at a very early age. It creates uh, how do I say? It's like
A synchronicity about the team. So like, yeah,
yes, yes. It's like a symphony. It's like that
yeah.
musical chords,
It's
like
yeah.
yeah. Where there's a flow to it,
It's yeah, it's it's magical. No,
Yeah,
but see, like something about my show, if you haven't noticed already, like like even if we're talking about something, and if there's an interesting tangent that we come across, I'd like to explore that. And so that's
yeah.
something I want to do with Cruyff right now. So like just about Cruyff though, like something I took away when I read this book like 3 or 4 years back was that
Mm,
after he left playing, so when he started coaching as well,
correct,
so he didn't go for the coaching badges purposely. So he
correct,
mentions in the book that he knew that his ideas were so novel that if he went into a coaching program, he would not get a single coaching badge, and it's because
correct.
he doesn't
You get
confine to,
rejected, yeah,
yeah, he
correct.
doesn't confine to the, let's say, the things that the coaching licenses programs are sort of propagating. So that in itself tells you, right, that like he's thinking outside the box in the sense that yeah, of how football should be played, and yeah, what it means to play football. I don't know, like I'm rambling a lot
I think
maybe.
it was more. See, the thing is the thought process. Like, I've also, like I said, I look for answers in the book. So
Huh.
it doesn't really have to be a football answer, but like
Yeah.
things like this. When suppose if I have to make a key decision or something that I'm doing now, I have to think outside the box that the
Yeah.
industry is not thinking. And I will, and I have to feel it. Okay, yes, I will do it. Like
Huh,
regardless,
huh.
I'm not going to move from the principle of, like, I might come across as a clown to people who have not done it or taken the risk to do it, and things like that. So I think um, in the most purest form, also for him is um, what I loved. The thing that I was super fascinated. He never stopped contributing to the game and stopped thinking about it.
Oh
So
yeah.
for him, what happened was, like the same thing. It doesn't matter if I get the badge or not.
Huh.
Like, it doesn't matter what the world, society. If you remember when he was in Barcelona, also as a player, he got caught up in that where he made a lot of losses
Hmm.
in his personal life, and he was making so much money, and then he was bankrupt, and he didn't have any money and things like that. So I overall think is he never stopped thinking that he's not gonna, like, he kept on contributing to the game
Yeah.
regardless of thinking will this contribution matter or not.
Huh.
You're getting
Right.
it. So
Right.
for what happens over there is, if I'm continuously thinking and redefining the fundamentals and questioning and bringing in new concepts, not only thinking that, oh, I have to be rewarded by it, but he was more like, let us try this format and see if it works. and
Hmm.
and I think that later on, like today, currently is the example of what he was trying to teach
Yeah.
a ball boy from Barcelona, who then became the captain, won
Yeah.
things with them, and is the biggest manager in the world. Now, that is a heart touching story.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
a ball boy. Like, I'm sure you've seen that video and things like that. So I'm a Liverpool fan, crazy, but
Huh.
I gotta respect that what he was trying to do then, and people understood. So people know about that my turn, and people know about, like, he was the Coolio, and he did this, and how what he did with the Netherlands, what he did with Ajax, what he did with Barcelona, that with, what he won. Um, but what he started 30 years back is now, like, now it shows on why you so different and things like that, like, that, like, I remember 2 3 years back, I remember, like, I had always known about Bielsa.
Huh.
Okay, okay, whoa.
He's another
I'd
guy.
known about him.
Uh-huh.
I'd known about him, but, like, I didn't have so much reading on him. So I said, oh yeah, I knew about him. I was like, he's one of those crazy fanatics, and especially because I knew about the Pochettino story and things like that. Um, but he is also one of the very, like,
He's yeah,
very,
he's
very,
another big thinker of the game is yeah.
yeah. So I think these people, thinker of the game, that's the word. So I
Hmm.
think these people, regardless of it doesn't matter अभी Leeds इस 10th position पे है या वो championship जीत गया है या वो
हाँ.
Premier League में क्या कर रहा है, you know, all that stats and all is irrelevant. But when he thinks, like, imagine, like I've heard this so many times from so many coaches, and when I see these interviews, I've never interacted with someone who's worked with him. I would love to, or
Same.
maybe with him.
Yeah.
But I'd heard stories about he's played a match against Real Madrid or whatever. He's gone to Zidane and given him a feedback and saying, "Can I get like half an hour from you and how your team can do well?" And he's done that to Guardiola. He's done that to a lot of
Everybody.
coaches.
Yeah.
Correct. So he finishes the game. So what does that teach you? Today, do you think Jose and Klopp are going to finish a game and Jose is going to go to Klopp or Klopp is going to go to Jose saying, "I'm going to help you out what your team did wrong." So for someone like Cruyff, Bielsa, these are massive thinkers of the game, and for them it doesn't matter your party A or
Exactly.
B.
Yeah.
You're getting it. So for him it doesn't matter कि Leeds hai, okay, that's his job responsibility, whatever he does. But football overall is
Yeah,
like,
it's
I
yeah,
think,
it's the love.
I think, yeah,
So maybe I got it wrong when I was talking about, let's say, the incentives when we're looking at a grassroots system with scoring and those with winning
correct,
and those sorts of things. So
correct.
when I was sort of linking it to Jean Piaget, and like in my university work as well, I've referred to Piaget, and I sort of linked it to the work that Bielsa is doing, and even thinkers like Cruyff, is the fact that so what it boils down to is that it doesn't matter if you win, it matters the manner in which you play. And that's been Bielsa's life story, in my opinion.
Always,
Yeah. So
always,
if you look at
always.
him as well, like in with the teams he's managed and things like that, they've played with the leagues they've been in, some of the best football like that, like his sides have played in the league.
Correct, correct.
Noted that they haven't probably won things, but like he's taken, so that's what he says as well, like with the examples you're giving. Like I think there was this joke that so they were playing Aston Villa or something, and the Aston Villa had both their goalkeepers injured, but they knew that even though there was a third keeper coming in, Bielsa would have probably known everything about him and where he was born and everything, because that's the amount of detail he goes into.
That's the type of detailing, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So, but
yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know, like it's,
These
you
are
know,
people who think very differently, man. Like they will not. I'm telling you, like some stupid pundits online can go say, "Oh, you have to be a winner, success
huh,
stocks." Maybe at a lot of levels. I also, when I work in this field, success does replicate a lot of things, but ultimately if I have to be that, again, go back to that basics and things like that, the football that they play is wow.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
wow, you automatically, I'm not a Leeds supporter. I know Leeds history, I know
huh,
everything. I even know Daglish was the one who popped up and said buy Leeds, to the owners and everything.
huh,
So
huh,
so I know all of that, but the history of Leeds and everything, I'm not a, but you won't believe, I think I saw a lot of Leeds matches compared to if I would watch
oh
any
yeah,
other.
for
Like
sure.
I didn't see a lot of Man City because now it's like
uh,
uh,
yeah, you got to
someone is doing
know.
or whatever. But I watched a lot of Leeds game, and because I'd seen that documentary, I'd read about Bielsa and everything, and I think the eye opener, Liverpool being champions, and the first game we played against them
Oh
was
yeah.
4-3. Oh my god, like wow. Like you go to a side that's won, that's super confident. Van Dijk wasn't injured.
huh.
Wow, we're the champions of the Premier League after 30 years. All of that, and this guy comes in like champions
And
who,
just yeah.
yeah. Like a knock. So I think after that I've watched a lot of their games, and even stat wise, I don't think so they lost a home game to any of the
Oh
top
yeah,
sides.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah. So
supposed top six, yeah.
yeah, so he again, like, he's the out of the box thinker. Pundits can go screw themselves,
Yeah.
but
See, Abhishek, you're touching upon a great point, because so I had Dipankur Sharma on my podcast. He's probably one of the first coaches to get a contract abroad. One of the first football
correct.
coaches to get a contract abroad, and he's an Arsenal fan, and this is something he talks about, is the fact that why do you like, let's say, the teams that you support? So he says the reason he likes Arsenal is that, so even when your
Arsenal,
team, yeah,
they,
so
yeah,
yeah, exactly, like they play good football and those. So that was his general breakdown. But the thing is, he says that even if your team wins a trophy, it's not like you won the trophy, if that makes sense. Like the
correct,
only sort of enjoyment you get in his estimation is when your team plays good football.
correct,
Is like when your team for the 90 minutes is giving all it's got and is trying to play good football in the way we conceptualize it.
correct. Correct. No, I agree,
Yeah.
100%. Like he's bang on. Um, I support a European club where I've never visited, or I
Exactly.
support a South American club which I've never gone to,
Huh.
and things like that. So it's again okay. You just get, maybe you brag about it, saying, "Oh, we won," or whatever. I think, like, suppose I'll give you an example. Die-hard Liverpool fan. Okay, I think the performance that they gave last year and they won, I was very happy. Wow, we finally won it. And the performance they gave on the year where we
We
were
got
on
97.
90,
Yeah, I think
97
that
and
was
where
a
we
much
lost,
better season. I've been saying that.
I
Yeah.
no doubt. And the football we played
Oh
was
yeah.
devastating.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow. Like, people would get, you get shivers if you're
Huh.
playing. Like, you get nightmares of, like, who to play.
Yeah.
Like, so I think, so I completely agree with him. My best friend's an Arsenal fan, because of whom I started watching football as well.
Huh.
He was a massive influence in my life to start supporting football and everything. And he's an Arsenal fan, and I laugh at him, make fun of him, and blah blah blah. He's done the same for the earlier years of his life. But I would get it, Arsenal fan. Like, I also see it, like, which, because I've spent so many years supporting and having so much love for the game, I think people are chosen to be certain fans.
Okay.
Yeah, because it shows in their characteristics and their personalities. This is my observation.
Oh, right.
This is my observation.
No, it
You
makes
know,
sense.
like,
Like,
I'm a Liverpool fan. There have been times where I'll tell you, okay, like, simple example, so many years. I think supporting this club has been the longest relationship I've ever had. you
yeah.
know, the girlfriends have come and gone. I've been heartbroken. This is the only relation where yes, I'm heartbroken, but this it's just a
There's
lot
still a
of
light at
love,
the
and
end of
it
the
gives
tunnel.
me, correct, and it exactly, and it gives me love back. Like, I can be pissed off with them
But for how long?
losing a stupid match. Yeah, but then I see one game of good football, and I'm like, I'm happy. Like, I was so happy. Uh, I'm watching a Burnley game at 1:30. I've never thought I would be in that position again. But I am, because
Huh.
yes, okay, they won. Okay, yes, Bobby Firmino
Huh.
scored, man. Like, fuck yeah. Okay, so I think it's that and characteristics. So I remember earlier in life when I was in college, and I would get, like, I would always see Chelsea, United winning and blah blah blah, all that. Um, I related a lot of Liverpool because of Stevie G.
Huh.
I share the same birthday with him.
Oh
He's a
wow.
loyalist. He is, his character is super defined and things like
Hmm.
that. So these are things where I thought, I think a lot of my attributes are also like this.
Yeah.
That I'm a one team guy. Like, it doesn't matter if I won so many trophies or not, but it mattered to the people and the community that I
You're
impacted.
serving. Yeah.
Correct. So for me right now is, I don't want to be the biggest agency or be a Coolio or whatever, or have 100 players. No, 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 no. For me, it'll be what I contributed to the grassroots, what I contributed to the players. So, there are times when you start thinking like this. So I think, like, Liverpool was made for me and I was made for them.
Yeah.
So,
No,
so,
I feel
so,
the same way. So there are several things to unpick here, but I feel something I wanted to ask you. So we've been talking a lot about, let's say, Bielsa, Cruyff, Arsenal, Liverpool, in that sort of way. Where,
Arsene Wenger. I'm a
yeah,
massive Arsene
yeah.
Wenger admirer.
So
What
like,
he
yeah,
did back then was like, it's
it's
impossible.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
people even laughed at it, and like,
Have you seen these? I don't know if you've been spending time on Twitter. There are several Arsenal fans who want him back now. Like they sort of realize that, acha, we shouldn't have been Arsenal, RC out then.
yeah. See, Arsenal fans online is also a different
Acha.
tangent. Yeah, I'm telling you, there would be a age and time where I would just watch Arsenal fan TV and
Oh,
not even
same,
watch the
same,
football,
same.
because I get an amazing laugh about it. Hey, Robbie. Yeah. So I think I would really love that. Um, no, I think us it was time for Arsene to
Huh.
go. I think what he did, he was a revolutionary. I will like in my line of, like I say, Cruyff, Bielsa,
Huh.
even for some matter of fact, I even say Ancelotti has been a very interesting manager as well. So I think uh,
Wenger
this
as well.
guy
Yeah.
fits into like Arsene Wenger for sure. Like, of course, like the way I to be really honest, like I nothing against the Man United fans or whatever. You know, um, Sir Alex was bang on, but I think Sir Alex as a coach, like Sir Alex is a very different personality in terms of not what he contributed to football, but the aura around the football club. Like I think the psychological factor of him trying to work with players, handle, be the boss,
Mm.
press conferences, and the things that he would do. Mentally
Hmm.
are very different than maybe he must have not been one of the best contributors of the game itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not maybe not maybe not like Cruyff or Bielsa or
Hmm.
Arsene Wenger or things like that.
Who are hands-on coaches pretty much.
Correct, on like hands-on coaches and who are on the game, they have had such
More
an impact.
insights. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. But for Sir Alex, what sets him apart from a lot of these guys is um, that aura just also
Hmm.
around the football that you play.
Yeah, and that's
That
I would say that's a skill in itself. Like even if so, that's like being a negotiator. Like the fact that
correct,
he kept switching his assistant coaches every couple of
correct,
years, because
correct.
so I think I've often said this to my United friends that I found Sir Alex to almost be a director of football and not a manager or not a head coach in that sense. Because and what an
Fair
example,
enough.
like,
Interesting. Yeah.
so what I said was that with the changes he gets in the his assistants every single year, if you look at, I think he stopped coaching United pretty much on the training pitch. He would only be there and like almost
That
envisioning the
that
sessions.
psychological thing where, oh, the boss is here.
He's always there. No, don't
Correct.
get me wrong, but like the
Correct.
oversight and the hands-on approach was more left to his assistants. Like if you look at
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
teams, obviously he was
No,
always
no.
with
Also,
the
what I
final
mean
word.
is when you say he was there, is what I mean is even though he's not coaching, the reason why he would purposely also be there is because it
Huh.
creates a psychological impression on the players. Oh,
Right.
the boss is here. Like they know that Sir Alex not going to come on the field and whatever the tactics or whatever the training and that those the coaches would be there. But psychologically, the boss is here and that thing. So I agree. Correct.
No, for sure.
He's more
So
of those lines.
so we've been talking about the several coaches and the way they look at the game. Like something I sort of think about a lot is, do you think there's a right way to play the game? And what I mean by that is, even if we may find, let's say, the approach that Cruyff puts forward, or the approach that Bielsa put forward, or any of, like, I'm a big admirer of Sarri as well in that sense, even though he hadn't worked out in Chelsea for the most part. But the thing is, like, do you think that we can say that these styles are superior to then say a style of, let's say, someone who's more pragmatic, like a Jose Mourinho or someone like a Conte, who thinks on the game and can sort of change from game to game? Like, do you think about
I
that?
think both are very important.
Huh.
Yes, I might not like Jose's football, but I'm a massive admirer of him,
Yeah.
of the personality actually. Like, if any of these coaches had that personality, I don't know. Like, wow. So, if there could be a mix of whatever, matlab, I want to play classic, entertaining,
uh,
thriller football with a personality like Jose.
like Jose
So
Mourinho.
wow, like
Wow.
I don't know, like it would be a movie that I would never want to finish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so so that's there. But like in the Jose character, Antonio Conte, I can name a few more. Diego Simeone. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I really like Simeone's style of football.
Yeah.
I do not agree to it a lot, but I like it because it does the
It's a
job.
different approach. It's a
Different
yeah.
approach. So that is where you have to keep thinking. So now I can't just be like, matlab, putting Cruyff apart, but I can't just be like what Klopp plays, that gegen
Huh.
pressing,
See, and
or
even
what.
Klopp's very different to Cruyff, and Klopp's very different to
Correct,
Bielsa in that sense, right?
correct. So that gegen pressing, and
Huh.
how he, his entire model is
Recycling
based on.
possession, huh?
correct. And how high do you press?
Hmm.
How do you win the second ball and all of that? So it's these are see again him, Pep, all of these are different coaches, but like so just to question these coaches sometimes or their fundamentals, it's good to have someone like Diego Simeone
Hmm.
or like a Jose Mourinho,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
because they get you the results.
Yeah, yeah.
Like ultimately, in the most competitive way, football is also who
It's a
gets the
results business. It's a
results.
business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a result base. So in like suppose in even in the Indian league, there are a lot of coaches that I don't enjoy their football.
Huh.
I don't. And there are a lot of coaches that I really enjoy their football. But the coaches whose football maybe I enjoy are not typically those winners or they won this thing. And the coaches who I don't enjoy are the ones who won, who won trophies and things like that. So uh, in the more neutral way, that
Yeah.
suppose there has to be two sides of a coin.
Yeah.
Like,
See, man,
there
I
has to
I
be the
totally
other
agree.
side.
Like, as much as I admire
Because then
people
the
like,
game will die,
huh,
like
yeah, yeah.
matlab, if अगर वो like if that possession based or whatever, if City doesn't play a certain way and Jose doesn't play a certain way, then where is the clash of
Huh.
then how is it going to be fun, or else it'll be like the German league or something like
Yeah.
that, but it's just an attack, there is no defense, just
Huh.
attack. So
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that we have someone like a Mourinho for every Pep Guardiola, if that makes sense. So like we have that constant like differences in
correct.
yeah. No, that's really
He's there
fascinating.
even like Burnley.
Oh yeah, yeah. And Burnley
Sean,
are very interesting to watch as well. Like if you want to think
very,
about it in
very
that sense.
interesting. Correct. Big, tall, physical
Hmm.
aspect. They defend in a certain way, in
Huh.
a certain
Yeah.
number. And they're a difficult side too. I'm telling you, I was least scared of United or any of those
Yeah,
teams.
yeah.
The amount that
Bro,
I was
Sam
like,
Allardyce give
dude,
me trigger. Sam Allardyce just give me
yeah,
tremors, man.
yeah. He's another one, the big Sam or whatever.
Huh.
So I think these clubs become very, very interesting. Like I remember Wolves also. Couple of years back, because of the pandemic, clubs have taken a hit, and especially the lower
Hmm.
clubs and everything. Wolves played some wild football, dude. With the resources they had.
Huh.
So again, you sort of start enjoying
Yeah.
that,
Different
because
approaches,
they
different styles. Yeah.
correct different approaches, different style. Uh, I remember there was the year Swansea had done well. This was in 2013-14.
Was this under Rogers?
Michael Landrup was there,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Miku was there. The guy, I don't know whether
Uh,
he would do this thing or whatever. I think, yeah. So I think that season that Landrup had with them was very, very interesting. Again, matlab, Swansea or whatever, or when Poch was there with Southampton, like everybody after that is like, oh, he's a good manager or whatever, and Spurs. And but when he came with Southampton, you like when I would see the game, I was like, okay, very, very interesting. He's like, it's a very different approach altogether, and things like that. So I think, yeah, these are things that are there, which
so like you touched upon Jose Mourinho. Do you know there was this really fascinating, I don't know, it's probably a theory, but like I think it pays so much relevance when the character Jose Mourinho is. So like you remember the time when he was, I think, assistant to Louis Van Gaal when Louis Van Gaal was there. So apparently, so there's this. I don't
and
know how much of a theory
Dobson also.
Huh. I don't know how much of a theory it is or how much truth there is to this. So Jose Mourinho went into the application for the job at Barcelona to be head coach,
It-
and then like they had a whole conversation with him on the fundamentals as to how they want to play the game and these things. And then they had and this time I think Mourinho had been at Barcelona for such a long time, and he was a recognized coach and all this whatever. And then another candidate they were looking at was Pep Guardiola, and
No, I'll tell
Guardiola,
you what happened was you missed out something.
right?
So Mourinho was the assistant. When he left, he changed football, went
Huh.
did different things, came to Porto, Chelsea, did all of that. Now this is the period when he comes back. The first time around, it didn't happen. So
Huh.
yeah, so it was the second time around when he finished, and before that Inter job when he was with Chelsea and he had gone to them, and then they had Pep and they had him. Yeah, please continue.
I found this fascinating because what I heard was that they didn't pick him, and they picked Pep, and Pep was relatively inexperienced because he was only the Barca
He
B
was with the
manager,
B team,
and
correct?
the B team weren't even doing that well. And I think a fundamental thing some journalists wrote about this was that this was one of the turning points in Mourinho's career, because if you looked at him then, he was still thinking about, let's say, playing progressive football and those sorts of things. But because of that interview, because of that job, which he really wanted to be
Mhm.
a Barca head coach. That stinged him so much that he became everything that was anti-Barcelona, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So he
Mhm.
became like, I'm going to be at clubs getting quick success, getting out. I'm going to play, let's say, pragmatic football. I don't care about the philosophy, all that stuff, and everything that was, let's say, associated. So things which were associated with Barcelona, he just wanted to go against, because that
Mhm.
sort of interview just left a bad taste in him. Like, I don't know how true that is, but
No, no, that is. I think it's quite true. Also, I
and
wish
maybe
I
you
meet
could
him
and
and ask
maybe
him
and
all
maybe
of
you
this.
and maybe and maybe it is something you could label on him, because Mourinho is that sort of a character. Like, obviously I don't know him, but like the way he appears in press conferences, like he would keep a grudge. I don't know, like I
Yeah,
think so.
see, I think Mourinho is as a manager, he should be, as a personality, he should be studied.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, for sure. Because what he's also contributed to the game is phenomenal. Like, we don't realize it now. We joke about it in 10, 20,
Yeah, he's
10
one of the
years
most
down the
successful
line.
managers ever. One of the most
Ever. And
yeah.
we will realize this, that apart from just him winning trophies, what he's contributed to it. Now, the thing with him is, like, I always found Mourinho like I found him like an Eminem character. You know what I mean? There's the real Slim Shady and there's Marcel Bruce Mathers. So there's a different Mourinho, and what he is to the public is a very different. It's maybe his alter ego or whatever. I don't know. There's something there in him. As that guy, which is true. I've also heard this story. What happened was, when he went to Barcelona applying for the job, he gave them a presentation,
Mhm.
and one of the things that he said was, Barcelona is going to be one of the best defensive team that nobody can break down. He landed up saying that nobody can break this down. Barcelona is going to be that team that nobody is going to surpass. Okay, and that is where I think they took a call, knowing that we don't want to be known being the team that
Mhm.
nobody can surpass. We want to work on different fundamentals and things like that, and what Cruyff had built,
Huh.
and with things like that La Masia model, and and the players coming up. And the thing is, one more thing which I do know did not fit in, which I think is, what Mourinho would do impact on the senior team. Like, Barcelona is a club where impact of the senior team
It's
is on
yeah, it
the.
trickle down. Yeah,
Yeah,
it has
correct.
to. That's their model.
It
Yeah.
has,
Yeah.
because that's how it works. Because
Yeah.
it's like a cycle. Because again, from your
You want
academy and
organic
your
develop.
youth and
Yeah.
be correct.
Promote from within. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. And these are the players who are going to come up again. It's
Hmm.
like a cycle.
Hmm.
Uh, they felt, I don't think so, he would contribute that much more to that cycle. Because what he had done with Chelsea was interesting, because he had finished Chelsea and gone there, but it wasn't something that it's a Barcelona style. It's like they would like right now also, when with Ronald, who's there, it's a very different
Oh yeah.
approach. Why he's there?
Yeah.
He's not one of the best managers in the
Oh
world. He
no.
was
No.
he was Everton manager, who's now who's now with Messi. I mean, he
Huh.
was a phenomenal football player, no doubt. He was a brilliant football player. But I think they stuck to those things. I think it's been their core philosophy,
Hmm.
um, and that really did change him, like, for sure. What he pulled off with that Barcelona semi-final is something I will
That's one of
never
the best
forget,
games ever, I think.
ever. So I think he then understood, knowing that. Not only the Barcelona way of thinking, ultimately it's about results and how you get those results. So it's not going to, at the end of the day, people are not going
No
to
one cares.
remember who came second. They're going to remember who won. So, I think that works. Yeah,
I
I
think
also.
I think that's going to be one of the most historic images of sport all along when Mourinho goes, and not only that, but when Mourinho goes and whispers into Pep's
Yeah,
ears that the game's not
yeah.
over.
Ibra.
No, that's fascinating.
No, I quite like him. I quite like him.
No, same man, same.
What a character.
What a character.
I don't know. He makes football entertaining beyond the field. Like, I love it. Like, I love it. So yeah.
No, it's good. Like with Mourinho as well. Like he's like as you said, like there should be a study done, and I think there's several journalists who said that they should get the best psychologists from Oxford or Cambridge to just study Mourinho and like the person he is.
Yeah.
So there have been so many instances where players have almost so obviously Materazzi and all these players at Inter have almost been crying to say that they've almost lost like a father when he's left Inter, but also otherwise like the things he said, like when Frank Lampard was having a shower to go and tell him, like at his most intimate period, to say that he's the best player in the world, like things like that no other coach would do.
Yeah,
It's
he got inside, like, yeah, these stories and these things, when he got inside the laundry box because to go. So unique personality, and I think he's one of the masters of reverse psychology also. See, I do a very interesting conversation with friends who I think have the intellect to understand football, uh, like real friends and people who love football as much as I do, but they don't work in it. I work in it, blah blah. To know that why the last 3-4 years have been very interesting for him, because the breed of players that are there now are are the softies and the social media lover boys,
yeah, yeah.
But it's not that generation of, again,
It's
like, it's the
Esteban
same thing.
Cambiasos.
Correct, like, or the Roy Keane era types,
Oh yeah,
where
yeah,
you kick someone to make sure the
yeah.
next day
He
he's
feels it.
like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, correct, of that. So I think players in that type of era, that generation, were more like, if the boss says it, it
Matlab,
has
there's
to be
something
done,
to it. Yeah, yeah.
and you have to do it. The boss is
Basic.
the
Yeah.
boss, which has now sort of changed, where players are a lot more dominant.
Hmm.
They're little, and the reverse psychology now doesn't really work with all players. Like, I remember, like, now he's sacked and everything, and when I saw the Prime, whatever, the
The
Tottenham
documentary. Yeah.
documentary, my God, like, it's come to this. So
No,
when I
but I
saw
think
that, when
yeah, yeah. Go
he
on.
was taking on Dali Ali, or whatever, things like that, is the same guy who is taking on the sort of players like 10, 12 years back. When he was in Chelsea, I'm sure he has said worse things, but it worked for those players, because then they would look at themselves and be like, no, I got it. And it played a very different effect for the generation of players that are now, who need maybe more care.
Hmm.
I think that has been a change. That is why he's, I think, unable to also. That's why he got sacked so many times.
No, I think there's
Now,
definitely. I think you're touching on there's definitely something to that, and like I've been thinking about this as well. Like I don't know, like what people can pin it down to. Maybe social media, as you touched upon it. It's the fact that like the players may think with instances with Paul Pogba and Dele Alli and those sorts of things. Like, these are big social personalities in terms of the social media
correct,
followings they have
correct.
and those sorts of the brand endorsements and those sorts of things. So half the time, like I don't want to sound this way, but football doesn't even matter to them because obviously there is so much else that's going on in their life.
Correct,
Do you know what I mean? So
correct,
even if they
correct.
think that, this coach is there, but like I think I'm more valuable to the club than this coach is. If that
Hmm,
makes sense,
hmm,
and
Yes,
then you
yes,
can
correct,
put
correct.
that argument there, and yeah, so it's definitely like a generational thing,
So
and
I,
that's
I
maybe
also think these individuals, see, sometimes what has happened is the school of thought, and what I have been looking at football as a kid and playing and coming, like, it was always, no player is bigger than the team,
huh.
like basic fundamentals. Might be Ronaldo, but the team is the team. And I'm talking about the Ronaldo OG. Okay. So so what I mean is, like, yeah, no player is bigger than the team. And classic example is like the Brazilian team, like Roberto Carlos,
Or like
Cafu, that
modern day
2000.
like Simeone's Atletico as well, I could say.
Correct, correct. That style. So, Now the players, what has happened is someone like maybe a Pogba and things like that is their personalities are too dominant even for the club and
Huh.
even for that
Yeah.
team. So
Yeah.
matlab, he's a World Cup winner playing with someone who's not even played at that top level.
Uh,
So they have that bigger say or whatever. Because I remember they did decently well before he got sacked and everything. I knew when they signed him, when Manchester United had signed him, I was sure he's going to win them things. He
hmm.
does. He
Hmm.
always does. When they went for that Europa and when Zlatan had come and he did it. Um, the reason why Zlatan was brought in not to score goals but to build personalities. You're getting it. So what he was trying to do is, if you really understand, Zlatan didn't really come to score goals. He was trying to,
Get that dressing
hey
room back.
boys,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey boys, it's time to become men.
Yeah.
Like that guy is also another individual altogether. But this is what he was trying to build, and a lot of people didn't get it. So right now, even like suppose when I say Liverpool,
Hmm.
I have abused the daylights out of Jordan Henderson all my life. Okay, I have, I have, I've always criticized him. One thing that works for him is that leadership when someone like a Stevie G was there,
Hmm.
and when he would understand there is, you're not winning anything, the things are difficult, but that pressure all together just to be a boy, a childhood boy from a community here and play and make it to the top level, um, was a thing. So I think he understood that really well.
Hmm.
And now that shows in the captaincy. See, one of the reasons people say that we didn't do well because our defense is wrong, tactically, football, all of that. Currently, we didn't have enough leaders in the team. That is why we've struggled. Till December, we were okay. If you think about it, till December, you're
Hmm.
still fine. But we didn't really start because the natural leaders started going away.
Abhishek,
So
I don't know. Like I like people. So like I think Van Dijk just plays so much of a role. Like it's not even quantifiable in my opinion. Like so people say that. I think Carragher and Neville were talking about this like a couple of seasons back when initially Liverpool had signed Van Dijk. People were saying like, yeah, you guys gonna get Van Dijk. He's one of the best defenders in the world. But like, what does one man make a difference? But for me, it does because Van Dijk is
yeah,
such a guy who you put anyone next to him, he just makes the whole team work. If that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. He's the what do I say? He's the guy who puts. He's that melody that makes the
Huh?
symphony.
Exactly. Like,
So he's that person. Yeah, yeah. He's that. I think he. What also happens is when you sign such key players, no, how well they improve players around you is what matters. Like I didn't think Gomez would be a better player
huh,
when Van Dijk came. Matlab, Lovren stopped making mistakes.
huh.
You know, so because I know every game where I would see Lovren, I would be a 50-50 because
uh,
he was one of those. If it goes well, it'll go well.
it'll go very well.
Yeah. If it doesn't, he will do something or the other
Uh,
stupid he will do. So I think like Van Dijk made all of these other guys a lot more better. Like I am very very keen on saying what Phillips or Williams will do when a Van Dijk is back.
oh yeah, that's gonna be
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
Because now they're gonna okay. And like that one season, not the year that we won, that 2019 season, there's nobody you could go past him.
Oh
No
yeah.
matter how fast you are, no matter how strong you are, he
Just
would
imagine
just
that.
be there. Like he would just be there. Whoever you are, I'm sure even I think we played Barcelona that season. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. We played.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Messi who? Yeah, yeah.
Messi who?
I remember. Yeah. So like I think all of that plays a very big factor that one player can suddenly change the entire dynamics of the game.
Dude, but Abhishek, like, I think he's so self-confident as well. Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, when he was at Celtic as well.
He's so big,
Yeah.
man.
No, but like how much he has trust in his own ability. Like, I don't know if you've seen him when he was at
Yeah, yeah.
Celtic.
I
So,
saw it.
oh,
Celtic. I've seen. So my younger brother is a Celtic fan. Die
acha.
hard Celtic fan. Die hard Celtic fan. I have a friend who's a diehard West Brom fan. Huh?
Wow.
Diehard. He's my school senior. He's a diehard West Brom fan. Like diehard. He's been featured by West Brom people saying there's an Indian guy who's crazy about West Brom. So
Hey, but sticking on the point on Van Dijk at
Van Dijk,
Celtic,
yeah.
huh? So there was this game. I think Celtic played Barcelona at Celtic, and then he was moving into midfield,
Yeah.
playing, and he was a central defender, and that's how confident he was being at Celtic, because he just knew that like this this quality isn't for me.
Yeah,
But like he
yeah,
was
yeah.
also very smart in that way, because I think I heard an interview of his or his journalist who said this, that so even though at Celtic he was getting offers from like top six clubs and even clubs in the Champions League, but he didn't
Hmm,
want to make that shift right away, if that makes sense, because he
hmm.
felt that even though I trust my ability, I sort of want to go in a manner that is, let's say,
Move in a higher,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
move
So
in that
that's why he said
standard.
that
Yeah, yeah.
Southampton sounded like a really interesting project for me, because they're a small club, but they're in the Premier League who's trying to create a good project, in a sense, getting
And
interesting young players
Southampton's
in.
always produced very good players.
Oh
Their
yeah,
academy is brilliant.
huh?
They produce good players. They play decent amount of good football season per season and all of that. Yeah, it made total sense for
And
him
then
to do.
from there
See,
you,
the
yeah.
thing is, he's a very smart thinker as well.
Mm.
Like, like you're getting it. Like, see, with Van Dijk, we get a lot. We don't only get the football player, the personality. We also get someone who's a thinker. Like, there are very few footballers who are smart. Also, like he's one of the
Yeah.
smarter guys. Where, of course, like you mentioned, from Celtic to anywhere top would be the perfect, which 90% of the footballers would do.
Hmm.
They would just be like, oh, from here we just straight up to somewhere big, and life is
Make the
good.
bucks, huh? Huh.
but but he chose the harder route, saying, from suppose i've I've climbed the ladder to level 4. Now instead of going to 8, I would go to
Huh.
6 and then maybe go to 8. So I think that made a very good merger. That merger, even with our manager, makes a lot of sense. Why he's there, from Mainz to
Oh yeah.
BBB to here,
Hmm.
and I think these are people who are very smart individual when they the way they think.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
focus. And now but when I saw that when he came on also, I was like, okay, he's priced that high, it doesn't matter, and
Hmm.
things like that. But that full season that I saw, people, we improved, like,
Oh,
you
for sure.
know, yeah,
We are the Champions League final.
from dealing with Sako and Lovren to, like, Trent, I think. And what they've done also, when a character like this comes in, no, like, see, it's always said, I've always heard it, like, because of my United real fans and all these other teams as well. Defenses wins the league. The best, defenses are the ones that win you the league. Your
Attack
strikers
wins you games.
can win you knockouts and whatever different competitive this thing. But when you're playing that league, it's the defense that wins you everything. And which I've understood by watching so many years of football.
Hmm.
Yes, defense does win. So I think when he came in, I think overall, because he was so confident, overall, meaning Trent Alexander-Arnold has
Hmm.
also, like, that level of confidence is, to pull that off with what they did with Barcelona was,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
till date like thinking, who will take that
That's the
chance?
balls to do that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean it's insane.
who takes that chance? So I think, yeah, these things matter. Like, but like I would be very vocal of, I was fascinated by John Terry's character. One of these. So also one more thing, Van Dyke is from that school of players.
Yeah.
It's, which is brilliant, which is absolutely brilliant. He is one of those who's from that breed of players or whatever.
See,
So
Abhishek, I think we've been talking a lot about Liverpool, and it's fascinating. Just to stick on it, because yeah, like obviously there's so much I want to add as well with Liverpool. The thing is, I feel we understand. Like, I think Liverpool are probably one of the best clubs in the whole world, I would say, to use data, and I actually identifying players through data. But what they do more is that, so obviously Michael Edwards, right, our director of football. I think he's
correct,
so
correct.
crucial to our club that
He's,
it's not
yeah,
even
yeah, yeah.
it's not even
Absolutely.
a But the thing is,
Absolutely.
so when they almost pick out these players through, let's say, the data models that they've created, Klopp says that yes, that is great, but I would still want a conversation with them to actually understand them as people. And I think that's fundamental. In even though obviously people like Allison were outperforming the goalkeeper metrics in terms of how many shots he
Hmm.
saved, which he
Hmm.
shouldn't have in terms of like the
Correct,
goalkeeper
correct,
metrics which are
correct,
there.
correct,
And all these other players you can look at as well, like Thiago, Naby Keita, all these players that we've
correct.
signed, Sadio Mane. But what's more important is that yes, they're outperforming on these numbers, but do they buy into our project? Like,
Yeah.
and that's
Do they
and that's
believe in
huh,
the, yeah?
and that's
That's been
something
the key.
Klopp said since the get go, that it doesn't like, if I say that okay, if I put three options there, like I have to get number one. If I don't get my first option, I'll stick to the players I have and I'll work with them,
Yeah.
because like if I want someone, like I want him, like, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
correct, 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 correct. No, absolutely. I think Klopp is also, what's interesting with Klopp, different from Pep, what I believe is, um, he buys or he gets into the players and the personality those players are. Like for Pep, it's more like, okay, I get a certain player or certain personality, so I will improve the player and they fit into my style
Huh.
and things like that. But with Klopp, I always felt like suppose I give you an example of Jordan Henderson. Who would have thought Jordan Henderson under Klopp is a very different leader.
Hmm.
So what all the players that we bought and everything, I think the crucial factor for Klopp also does play is the type of personality, and like you very well said, do they buy into the project and believe in the project?
Huh.
Like if they got like I like there was several times last year where there was this thing of Coutinho coming back. He has reached out saying, I want to come back and things like that. And I remember when he was leaving and all of that was happening, and I always thought I still think he's a phenomenal
Of
player.
course, yeah.
I rate him better than Neymar. I
Oh
find Neymar,
wow.
I don't
Hmm.
like I don't like Neymar at all
Right.
at all. At all. I think he's just about average. There's too
Okay.
much
Too much,
foo-foo-ness
too much
around.
glamour.
Yeah, too much around him. He's okay, man. Like he's okay. Um, no, I like Bruno Fernandes more. Like, matlab, it's come
Okay.
to that. Like, matlab, I'll choose Bruno Fernandes over Neymar.
Huh.
So what I mean to say is he was so good, but the minute Klopp realized and they pursued him, if you remember, they made him
Huh.
stay. They didn't let him go, and then from summer that got dragged on to the winter, and and once he realized that he just doesn't see being with us. I get it. You love Barcelona. It's every South American's dream to play in
For Real or
Spain or
Barca, yeah.
Barcelona and things like that. Um, but for him that mattered because
Yeah.
Coutinho was such a crucial part of that team, and things like that. And once that happened, his mind was made up. Like till date, if Coutinho says he wants to come back, I think that midfield area of scoring goals, which is why we lacked this
Hmm.
season, I think it will be back. But just Klopp on those principles of
Hmm.
personality or what you bought, what we were trying to do and things like that, it didn't happen, so it's not going to happen. So that
Yeah.
way, I think he's a very fundamental manager. Like if you see in his interviews, he just says football is just football, but life is bigger. So you know what I mean? It's just a game of football. We'll win or lose because he's been on the receiving end so many times, going to finals and losing,
Hmm.
and things like that. So the way he projects life, I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely do because he says you have to be a very good person in life to be a good person in playing football. If you're a good human being, you'll end up being a decent good footballer if you stick to working on yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are very interesting things, which something I think Pep has a very different take on.
Yeah. No, there
Yeah.
are so many things here. Like, I think Klopp said in the press conference when he was asked about Coutinho leaving, he said that he had this chat with Coutinho where he said that if you go somewhere else, you'll just be a player on the bench. But if you stay here, you'll have a statue named after you. And that just says everything about him, like what he values and what he doesn't. And of recently as well, with the rumors that have been going about with Salah and things like that. Obviously, Klopp said it inadvertently, where he said that we just want players here who want to be here. If that makes sense. So even if it's someone as big as as big as Salah, as big as someone like that, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because it's more about, as you said, it's about the team ethic. It's about working together. That's the fundamental of gegenpressing.
Correct.
Like
It's not an
no,
individual, it's a
yeah, no
team.
playmaker, no playmaker is good as good as the system. That's the basic of gegenpressing. But so you were talking about this, like, I think I've lost my chain of thought now, but
I think
something.
we've gone from wow, we've taken
Right, but it's been really fun. But something I wanted to sort of circle back to, which I guess when we've made a sort of tangent to coming to talk about Liverpool and things, was when you were sort of talking about these models, let's say the Uruguayan model and the Belgian model and those sorts of things. And this is something I think about a lot. And you stressed a lot about this aspect of, let's say, society and the sociological aspect of, even if it works in Belgium, it's not necessarily going to work here. What my pertaining question is, do you think the Belgian model, because I've had conversations with people on the podcast and otherwise as well, that the Belgian model works so well, is that they can sort of have a philosophy running down the whole country, is because they're so tightly knit? Is the population so
yeah,
small, like
yeah,
people
yeah,
know them,
yeah,
and those sorts of things?
yeah,
And that's not necessarily going to work here, because perhaps people in the northeast are completely different to people in Punjab or something like that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you
The
think?
diversity is also
Huh,
very
right.
yeah.
So how do you think about, let's say, an Indian approach? You talked about the Uruguayan model, but do you think even that's probably only going to work in some states? So, like, how, so when you're thinking about
No, so
India as a,
what I like about the, suppose I'll give you an example. What I
huh,
like about the Uruguayan model is um, their grassroots approach is, like I said, their approach is not technical. Like I said, the Belgian model is fundamentals, receive, shoot, receive, pass, dribble, or whatever,
hmm,
all of these. Um, for the Uruguayan model, it's more about you come and play.
right,
Like you come and play, so it's a very different take on it. Now why that works over here is, and a lot of, because societies are different. Uruguayan model, the South American, not just the Uruguayan, but the South American model is a lot more to replicate with the Indian model, is because the societies are very similar. Society,
hmm,
not diversity. So they're not as diversified as us, but that the society structure is very similar. So it makes a lot more sense for them to, for this model to work here, which was something that we tried achieving with the Hero ISL Children's League and the Baby League and all of that, with the AIFF, and with the um, 2019, my agency did a league in the grassroots called the ISL Children's League, and we put this off in Bengal, and my friends did it in the Northeast and things like that. Um, that works here. Uh,
hmm,
Diversity, yes, it's a difference. So what is happening in the Northeast is very different to Goa and very different to Kerala and very different to Calcutta. So it plays, but I think the grassroots model of it is the enjoyment of going and playing, forming a certain
huh,
structure of playing. Also, like things that are very interesting over there is you have a mixture of girls and boys playing together. So,
hmm.
so which is a very important thing. So if you get the kids to blend at a younger age, and there's no gender discrimination from a very early age, from about when you're 5. So a girl is also kicking the football, and so are you. So it's a very
Yeah,
important
yeah,
thing. So these are things that uh, mentally groom these kids. And I think after a certain age is maybe once they, that's why the age bracket that is being defined in the Uruguayan model is very, very interesting.
hmm,
It's that under 5, under 8, under 10, under 12. So in those, so you keep climbing that also. So initial, your first grassroots is to go and enjoy. Then you come to that when you come to that under 8, then you get a, okay, this is my team that I play with every day. Then you get it, this is my team, we are a bunch of 7 people, 2 people sit out, there'll be rolling, people get enough chances to play. It's a it's a I, if I remember, it was a 6-minute half each for them, because they can only run that much.
right, yeah,
You don't want the kid to be running and going crazy.
and not getting touches
So
on the ball. Yeah,
yeah, correct. And you do that. And so I think these are important things that define different. Also, why the Uruguayan model is much better. um, Belgium, European, all of these, uh, their facilities, their their entire infrastructure, their training program, their train the trainer program where the coaches are
Hmm.
trained.
Hmm.
All of that is at a very different superior level. Uh,
Hmm.
South American model fits into the Indian model is you just need a field to play.
Hmm.
You know,
See, but
so
I agree that, let's say, South America is, if you want to if you want to compare, let's say, countries, or if you want to compare, let's say, continents, I think it's very similar to, as you are touching about with several Indian contexts. But even then, because of the work I've done with World One, and who have sort of worked in this area of baby leagues and grassroots, I
correct.
have come to notice, let's say, the interconnectedness that, okay, so because they've primarily worked in the Northeast with the baby leagues, I've seen the interconnectedness that there is. So you were touching about this a little earlier when we were talking about grassroots, that even with the parents, and the people who come to, let's say, the guardians of these kids, even they have to be invested in the project, let's say, in the setup. And I don't know, maybe I'm short sighted here, but I feel that that perhaps could work much more in a place like Northeast, in a place like Calgary, in a place like Goa, compared to a place like Madhya Pradesh, or compared to a place like Tamil Nadu, where perhaps historically there hasn't been that sort of a connect. So even though we identify that, yes, as an approach it may be similar, but in terms of the way several different states look at football, or several different states look at the game, may not be the same. So
I
even,
agree.
do you know what I
I,
mean?
yeah, yeah, I agree. I worked in it, so I
Yeah, yeah.
know it. Uh, the thing is, in the Northeast, Calcutta, and all of these places, the sense of community is very strong. By the way, in the Northeast also,
Yeah, exactly.
and the thing is, the factor for their entertainment is very limited. So I'll give you an example. Half our youth is wasted on watching stupid films or music or things like that, or watching roadies, like and Big Boss. Like Big Boss is like
Whatever, yeah.
yeah, I can go on about it, and I
Do PUBG was
absolutely
pretty
hate
big.
it. To PUBG, yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So from that over there, there is because I've had friends in the Northeast. I've worked in the Northeast. My best friend is in Shillong.
Hmm.
What is really interesting is, for them everything is sports.
Yeah.
So it could just not be football, it could be boxing, it could
Huh.
be badminton, it could be playing a ancient sport in their community, and music. So for them that entertainment angle is very tiny, that window is very tiny. Suppose for you and me being in a metropolitan, or being in Madhya Pradesh, or suppose not even Mumbai, all of that, suppose you're in MP, Rajasthan, all of that, the range that we have is a lot, no, as an audience.
Hmm.
मतलब अगर मुझे स्पोर्ट्स नहीं है, मतलब स्पोर्ट्स में भी क्रिकेट है, क्रिकेट नहीं है तो रेस्ट डजंट मैटर. But
Yeah.
then I have, but you're getting it. But I have movies, I have shows,
Your
I have
phones,
and
Instagram, whatever. Yeah.
phones, Instagram. So that entertainment angle,
Yeah.
that there is a wide spectrum there, uh, which in the Northeast is very this thing. For them is
That is
sports.
everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for them they don't care about अभी ऋतिक रोशन अवार्ड जीता या
क्या कर
शाहरुख
रहा
खान जीता है. No,
है?
they don't care
Who
about, you know what
cares?
I mean.
Yeah.
Or
No, for sure.
करीना कपूर ने तैमूर को आज क्या खिलाया,
Uh,
they, you know what I mean.
no, but no, you're speaking so much truth here, because, like, the thing is, so if I want to look at models like Goa and Calcutta, even, so even though there is, let's say, this aspect of pop culture which is there in Calcutta and Goa, it is
Correct.
still like they're still so obsessed with the sport. They're still so obsessed with football that I can still envisage people in, let's say, Kerala, Calcutta, Goa, to, so even if there are parents who are dropping off their kids, to be then invested. Because
Yeah.
while I was working at World One, something I got to know which was so fascinating, because this is something I see in the West, but the fact that I got to see it in India as well, that these parents, they were acting as almost part-time coaches. So many of
Mm-hmm.
these parents who used to have their kids play these grassroots leagues would act as coaches for these teams. And obviously they're not, even though they're not licensed, that is still good in a way, because you're getting
No, it doesn't matter if they're
yeah, it
licensed or
doesn't
not.
matter.
Yeah,
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 it doesn't
correct.
matter, because you're still there. You're invested in the whole thing, which I think would be so removed. Let's say if you're even looking at a place like UP, a place like even Delhi, or places like this, right?
Okay, when you say UP, my heart pumps. Wow. Like, no, I agree. See, like completely get that. See, when we did the same model, okay,
Huh.
where we made the parents see for when you're playing the youth development league and the grassroots, I don't need a referee, right? Like,
Huh.
I'm not going to get a referee for the game. So we would let the parents, because they get invested, be the referee themselves. Be participate, get more involved, and like the kids in the smaller in the kids league, the baby league and all, you don't really have throw-ins.
Hmm.
Ball goes out, you kick the ball
Just
and
kick
start.
in. Huh. Huh.
Yeah. You don't, like I said, it doesn't have to be technical. So when the parents would be more invested, that is the right word. They would really take this to, like, they would also get a sense of belonging to be
Huh.
going and seeing their kids play. Now, in different states, what happens is their challenges are very different altogether. Like most of them would go for maybe a cricket training or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they
And
would
that's even
go.
stretching it. Yeah.
That's even stretching it. But they don't like being involved because I think the overall sports development and what sports is, they're not educated it in the right way.
Hmm.
Like the reason why Bengal, Kerala, or Goa and all of that is like I was there in Goa, for 7 months. Um, FC Goa game or be it a Salgaonkar game, the bars are
Full.
filled. Full, they're filled with people. People are getting smashed. People are loving it, and they get and it's not just the men.
Huh.
It's like I said, same thing in Calcutta. Like if there
Hmm.
is a game, meaning off. মানে আজকে কিচ্ছু হবে না.
খেলা হবে।
হ্যাঁ, খেলা হবে. So so this is the thing. So I think to start this culture in these states is again that grassroots model and unique ways of adapting and taking a mixture of Europe, South America, everything,
Hmm.
and making it somehow making the Indian khichdi out of it and making it work.
Yeah.
You have to because like how do I say, like what might work in a MP might not work in
Yeah.
a Goa.
Yeah. That's
You
my
know,
argument. Yeah. Yeah.
so correct. So what it has to be a little more customized as for them, and it has to be again the key thing over here will be it could be a very different approach to get them invested.
Hmm.
So now how in different levels can you get invested, can the parents be involved, can the coaches see more incentives? Also what happens in these states, the coaches are not given good incentives. So why will a coach, and the coaches are not giving attention. Like if you're a coach from Calcutta, meaning kuch ho nahi ho, matlab,
You're a big
you're
thing.
never going to run out of attention.
Huh.
you know and if you're in Goa or if you're elsewhere, you're never going to run out of these things. But if you're in MP, does someone give a shit about
No.
you? That's the thing.
So I spent some time in Gwalior for like a couple of months, a couple of years back, and the fascinating thing I came across was that I think there's only one club all over Madhya Pradesh. I think it was Bharat FC or something. I'm forgetting now. And
Bharat
even
FC back in the day was really
yeah,
cool.
and even now, and like because I was working with this academy, and they're like, yeah, like there's nothing in terms of football. Like it's just dead. And that's such a
And
big
they don't
state.
even care about it, to be
Yeah, and
honest.
it's no, but like the fact, yeah, exactly, and it's such a big state. I'm like looking at the possibilities. Like if someone, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's insane.
Also it has to come from, like, I think the cultural thing. See, right now what is happening in Indian football and all, no, is going to set base for the next 30 to 50 years. Suppose, like, I'll give you an example. I don't represent the player, my player, like, see, I don't always, not everybody I give advice to is someone I work with.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me, I always help out people, and it can be from different players from various different places. अभी उसका potential है कि वो सिर्फ second division या state level ही खेल सकता है,
Then
which
that's
is good
fine.
enough,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
okay.
fine, which is good for, and it's better that he understands that, because I come across people who are like, oh no, I will, like, whatever. So I like people who understand, who have the maturity to know, okay, this is my level and this is what I can do. So one interesting thing is I've advised football players from Indore, Jaipur, and all of these places. The kids who are playing football from these states now are someday going to go back to their states, and when they become entrepreneurs or work somewhere or become family members, they will play a very important part to make a legacy for their kids to start playing the sport.
Yeah.
So if suppose 100 people from Jaipur have gone on to play, and someone out of them, one becomes a decent player, and all of these people, once they finish playing football, they go back, I'm sure some of them would want to create a club or academy
Or
or
academies.
legacy,
Yeah.
and then the cycle will start.
Yeah.
And then that will help the cycle start in the push and all of that.
Yeah, I think that's a very organic way to go about it, because
Yeah.
the time I spent in Gwalior, because I had worked, obviously, because I'd grown up and brought up in Calcutta, so I've seen the football culture there. But even worked with clubs like East Bengal and other academies around the country like Baichung Bhutia. The thing
Right.
is, when I worked at Madhya Pradesh in Gwalior, like the quality I was looking, like the quality of these players, like these, even so I think I was working with the under 14s there. They just weren't at the level of a 14-year-old should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's because they were brought into the game so late. Like some of them started playing the game when they were like 10, 11, something like that,
Too
because
late.
that was the only experience they had to football. So I understand the argument that, for example, if there's a player who comes in, I'm just giving a Gwalior for an example because that's where I worked for a bit, so I know a little bit about it. That if there's a player who comes in from Gwalior and then makes it big and then would then contribute to the society, but then I feel there's already such a big gap between, let's say, Calcutta, Northeast, or some of these states, as compared to that I don't know, like
But
maybe
this is where the AIFF has to really.
that's so that was my next question to you. So this is a question I generally ask, like a hypothetical question. Um, say if you were AIFF president, so Abhishek Sharma, if you were AIFF president, obviously the AIFF president doesn't have all the responsibility as it comes to development, but has a fair share, I would say. Like, how would you structure the game? Like, often how I've thought about it, and maybe then you can come in. I have suggested maybe an approach that's similar to Brazil may not be the worst. So what happens in Brazil is that they have these state leagues all across the country, and then those state leagues then propel into the third division, second division, and top division. We sort
Correct.
of have that in India, but
Correct.
then the level of the Goan League or the level of the Calcutta League is so much more superior to the other state leagues, I would say, that it's not
Correct.
even a comparison. And sometimes the Goan League or the Calcutta League is even better than the second, third division in India.
Yeah.
Like, so like
Yeah.
like so just a general question, like how do you think, like how would you structure Indian football?
I think there has to be a pan-India football development project. Like you have to do it by strategy, and the strategy has to be implemented. That it's not going to like so. You have to have long-term and short-term goals, right?
Right.
So this that strategy has to be in place in short term. What do you want to achieve in long term? What do you want to have? So with AIFF, like I think a couple of things are very important. Like I would say, if it's a pan-India project, you will identify certain states that you think um, can do a lot more better
Better.
compared to the other states, and then move into different strategies of grassroots football playing a big role. Train the trainer is another key. The reason why, suppose the experience that you spoke about your time at Gwalior was also because the coaches aren't trained that well. Like
If
so,
there are coaches at all. Yeah.
if there are coaches at all. So I think all these things play a very big factor. So I think the long-term goal has to be very strategic. They have to identify what they do in the grassroots, how they secure the model, how they also keep a competitive platform. So like right now, the biggest question is there are so many academies in India which are there. There are under 18, 15, 13 leagues, right? So when AIFF gets these academies and everything, they should now start forming a structure where there are incentives for these academies and XYZ. Apart from AFC criteria, I give you a 4-star rating or whatever. If you're a club, if they can state wise and then like following the Brazilian model, if they just start this with the academies itself, with the under 15, 18, 13, and then blend it all together, I think that is going to show more appreciation. I think the budget allocation can be better because see in a yeah, correct. So in like a Bengal, in Goa, Kerala, there are enough private investors. There are enough that the whole society knows about the sport and everything. So
Yeah, that's important. They know about football. Like football
correct. So
exists.
correct. So there are individuals who can also support the cause. But in someone like a MP, or I'm not really sure if an industrialist would want to do something over there. So I think the budgeting of what you do in big state, and first for you to identify which states will do well and which states do you think is a longer prospect, like something that with the ISL Children's League, which we managed to achieve overall also, and the credit goes to the ISL Children Team Central. I was just the agency, but it's their thought process, what they wanted to. When they took the project to Arunachal, because we did it in Meghalaya, Arunachal, and West Bengal, it was very, very interesting. Meaning in Itanagar, meaning you're getting it, like you have to get 4,000, 2,000 kids. Like, how do you get, like,
Wow.
or you have to get different vendors and things like that. So these things became very, very interesting, like in Itanagar, where people voluntarily came forward to say, today I will help doing the scoring, or I'll be a
Yeah.
ball boy, or I will do this. So I think that was identified really well. So I think in states where India sees a lot more with AIFF and all, if they see more potential, so they should have these plans. They should have a more competitive platform. They should encourage. I think they should financially also encourage clubs and teams, because I've seen in my lifetime working in Indian football so many clubs open shut academies, open shut. So I think they should come up with some sort of a program where they keep criterias and they can financially help these clubs also
Yeah, sustain themselves. Yeah.
sustain themselves and things like that. So like I'll give you an example. Bangalore didn't have a football culture at all. I've studied college there, so when I was there, no. Like cricket and hockey was bang on. The year Bangalore came, I remember it was next to my house, the stadium. The first year when they came, I went for a Mohan Bagan Bangalore FC game to Kandirva Stadium, which was 5 minutes walk from my stadium. My friends and I, we love watching football. So we would, and we are all from Calcutta who were there in Bangalore. So what happened was, called a few pitchers. We got nicely happy and now ready for a football game. And we went for a football game, paying 20 rupees for the tickets. Uh, for this was 2013, 14, if I remember. And we loved it. And that time there were like, in a stadium of 10,000, I think there were like 100 people there, out of which 60 of them were all these guys from Calcutta. Saying, it's a football game, meaning they have to go and there's Mohan Bagan or whatever. And regardless, there were East Bengal fans also over there, but they were more like, it's football, and the BFC has finally has the like. There's a team that's going to be from Bangalore. Okay, let's go support them. Chetri plays for them and things like that. So we went for that game. We loved it. From that 100 people culture to now what West Block
One of the
Blue
biggest
is,
clubs in
and
the world. Yeah, in the India,
correct.
sorry.
In India, and like what their fan culture is. What it started doing later on is all these clubs now started getting a model of, wow, Bangalore has done it. Like, wow,
We can do
okay,
it.
we
Yeah,
could.
yeah.
So I think even these states, if AIF can come up with a structure of at least having participation of one club from each state and pumping them or giving them support, and if it has to be a PPP, so it has to be identifying the right partner in that state or the right corporate in that state, maybe giving them corporate incentives. If you join the football program with AIFF, suppose Ishan is a big industrialist from MP he's one of the top shots from the state who contributes to the state and the nation and blah blah. So I could come up with a football sort of a plan where if you invest in this club or the academy, you get a certain incentive. So it has to work out in such a way where it also gets that corporate partnership, and then because then only it becomes exciting, because the type of money that a corporate can put in to build a fan culture and things like that, which JSW did. Um, is a reflection of what Jamshedpur is doing in, like, I get the fact that Jamshedpur is a Tata city, but the type of engagement levels that they've done with people, the type of schools and their programs and the fan engagement and getting the communities together, that plays a massive aspect. Who thought Jamshedpur mein football hoga? But ho raha hai,
So,
develop ho raha hai.
yeah. So something you touched about was this aspect that, let's say, clubs sometimes don't find it financially viable, so they open and shut, and this sorts of things. I think in part it's also to blame the AIFF, because often I've heard club owners who've said that they're very much interested and they really want to work in the sport, in football, but they don't always see a roadmap there. So often I think there are several club owners. I think Dempo's club owner had stated this earlier, that they want to work in football, but if they don't see a roadmap in place where they see clear progression for their club, and if their money is
Right,
going in the right places, why
right,
should they be spending their money? They should
right.
rather put it in development. So I think that's also another thing, that AIFL has to first get this get this
The thing
stuff in
is
order.
also they have to stick to it. We make a roadmap and we change it. Like, you have to stick to it. And like I said, they have to define their goals. You just can't come out in the media and saying हम football को develop कर रहे हैं. Yeah, like I'll tell you, like, I don't really care about who thinks what. Getting the under 17 World Cup was killer. It was massive. But it's a hoax. What are you doing? Are you creating a legacy project for the women footballers? No. Do you have enough academies supporting women's football? No. Do you have a structured league for women's football? No. Have you done enough to? So these are all no, 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 no. And then you can come out in the media and say, oh, we got the women's football World Cup and blah, blah, blah. So there are lots of questions. See, for a outsider, suppose for my parents, or suppose they're like, oh,
wow, it's a big thing.
football ka World Cup aa raha hai, very nice and blah blah. I
It's
get
playing
that.
on the narratives again, right? Like we were
Correct.
talking about yeah.
But for people like you, me, and all, if you're working in it, if you're there involved, I had a lot of questions saying it's just a marketing gimmick for you. You're not going to contribute anything to women's football. Women footballers in India are struggling. Like, I know these players, I work with them, the national team players, I'm involved with them. In certain aspects, they're getting, but they're not getting enough. The thing is, we've become so used to कि हमें जो भी मिल जाए and we're very content. No, ये है. Like, that's the difference between cricket and football, I must say.
All sports
Like,
and cricket in this country,
yeah,
I'd say,
all
yeah.
sports. And the thing is, cricket में pressure इतना आ जाता है ना, so they don't have a choice. Yeah, like, it's a this thing. Like, I'll tell you, I was listening to Neeraj Chopra, is one of my favorite athletes. Favorite. And I was listening to his podcast, and he's going to put India in the map in terms of javelin and Olympics and things like that. And I'm a massive admirer, massive. Matlab, beyond football and things in my hockey or something like that, if I have to turn it, massive admirer of him. And I was listening to his podcast and listening to the frustrations that he's having because of the pandemic and his practice and what the sport requires and things like that. It's sad. It's sad. And I don't think so a lot of people even know who Neeraj Chopra is.
Oh yeah, even I don't think I know. Yeah.
Neeraj Chopra is the only guy who the US analysts have predicted that in the Olympics, the one medal that India can get is this guy. And he's phenomenal. I am a massive admirer.
So he's a javelin
I've been
thrower.
tracking him for 5 to 6 years.
So he performs in javelin,
Track
does he?
and field, yeah, track and field.
Okay,
and
track and
javelin.
field, yeah.
And he's phenomenal. He's a case study for anyone to.
Yeah.
So again, what I mean is, overall, apart from football, also, once you and I start watching, supporting, then the culture comes in.
Right.
Like, I get it when Indian football fans get pissed off saying Star Sports broadcast nahi kar raha hai match. Are there enough people watching these matches? No. So it's a business entity. They don't want to show it. They don't want to show it. So, and that's there with cricket. Cricket is like Nirma in this country. Everyone has an opinion. So I grew up loving cricket. I played a lot of cricket as well. And for me right now, I don't know. Last 8 years, I haven't seen a single cricket match.
Wow.
I haven't. After I left working in the IPL, I stopped watching completely. I watched one game was India England in the final or semi final or some shit that happened in the 2019 World Cup,
Uh,
and I don't watch. What I watch is I don't watch Indian cricket. I watch Test cricket. I love it.
Acha.
I watch maybe West Indies playing Australia
Okay.
or
Yeah.
England playing Australia. I like watching that because that gets my love for the sport itself back. What we as Indians have done to cricket is something that's a product I don't want to buy. you know,
Yeah, we just spoiled cricket for the whole world pretty much.
that's a product I don't want to buy. I'm content with not buying it. It's okay. Right. So that
Yeah,
has
go
to
on.
come. So the type of fan following which is there, it has to
Mm.
come for this as well. Go support a like suppose
Support your
organically
local
in
club, huh?
football. Yeah, support a local club. Like organically, this happens in Goa and Kerala. And like I'll tell you, in West Bengal, there's a place called Hooghly. It's in the
Hmm.
24 Parganas and all of that. I went to randomly to meet a coach over there, then who told me I should come as a guest to watch a football final. Okay, over there in their community, in their para. So I said, okay, I'll
Yeah.
come. It'll be like
No, but
I
it
want to
shows.
connect with
No, but it
people.
shows you, right? Like it shows you like the appreciation that they're seeking, or like the recognition that they want. Like
Correct.
so, people to see see that they exist, because even
Correct.
that.
So when I went for that game, I saw 15,000 people. 15,000
Wow.
people. 15,000 people. Like ATK does not manage to
Yeah.
get
15,000. Nah.
15,000 people. So I was very touched. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And they're coming and telling me Cape ka player hai, oh African player hai, and you're there. And it's a very like it's
Yeah,
a
they're
very
proud. Yeah.
different market and the
Uh,
crowd and everything. But people are involved, man. Matlab, that biryani guy is getting revenue out of serving biryani. Matlab, it's a whole
business
ecosystem
model.
that
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. It's a whole ecosystem. So, Abhishek, like something I wanted to touch base on was, obviously we've been talking so much about the structure, and obviously there's so many faults with it, and it's something we need to take attention to. But can you throw some light on your role as an agent and like how it fits in the ecosystem almost?
uh,
I know I'm coming to it a little late, but
yeah. Uh, uh, See, a football agent is very different to a football manager. I think a lot of people should first get
yeah,
a basic understanding of all of that. And as a football agent, the thing with me was I never thought I would do this, but I was always fascinated that I would want to work in similar lines. Like, so I never knew that I'm going to get into being a sports agent or something like that, but I always knew that I wanted to um, represent talent, represent players, and then slowly get into all of that. So there is no theory, there is no chapter, there's no typical way. It's not a Philip Kotler book that someone can give to you and be like, this is how you become a sports agent or a football agent. So it's on the go learning, and it's on the go with the processes and your understanding of the sport, which
hmm,
is on the field and off the field.
yeah,
So these things contribute a lot. Uh, so for me, in my day-to-day thing, if I would say is being a sports agent, I'm pretty close to my players. I practically oversee every single thing they do. And it doesn't have to be, I don't only work with players who are like, you're working on a transfer from A to B or XYZ. Uh, we also look into what type of a personality is the player, what is their hobby, what type of a social medium can they be a part of,
hmm,
what is the type of brand that we can create around the player. We also look at a lot of commercial angles. We also look at a lot of social responsibility angles, where because the player is a public figure, how the player can make his or her voice heard to the masses. Then we look into the multiple things that we look into. So there are times we look into the type of property of a player wants to buy.
right.
We consult in that. We consult in, like, I'm not going to name the talent, but I've looked after players where I have had their kids to get admission into
Schools, yeah.
schools, the type of car they want to buy,
Yeah.
the type of holiday they want to take. So for us, because we're so deeply involved and the legalities of things and everything, so we play, like for us, we play a very we play as a family member sort of a role, but also depends from the talent, like how much is, what is the type of relation you have with the talent.
Hmm.
There are times where it can be really intimate and you're a family member, and there are times where it can be your external go-to person. They don't really want you to be intimate, because then the relationship can go at a different flow, but they want you to be that external advisor, or external person that comes into their mind when there is a crisis, or there's something good, or there is something, something they personally want to work upon. So that's how at different with different types of talent we like getting involved. And
So,
this is something that I picked up myself,
right.
like no book, nothing. This is on just my learnings and experiences and uh, man management.
So
uh,
you've established quite a few things as to what you cover when you work with players as such. Um, like, but do you have like I've heard interviews in which where you've spoken about this aspect that you want to have your goals defined with your players who you're working with. So there is this initial conversation where you have with them and you say that so what do you want, like what do you want in your career, like where do you want to get to, and those sorts of things. So like, the general question I'm trying to pose here is that, like, what's your philosophy when you try to work with players? Is there something you have in mind when you get in the conversation, or do you just let it flow and see what the player has in mind?
so I think my fundamentals are something that I don't move from. So that has to be there. I only get to the stage of having a conversation with the player if the fundamentals are matched. So if it's not matched, only I don't get to the level of trying to know him, or him trying to know me, or
Hmm.
she trying to know him, and vice versa. So the fundamental aspect has to be bang on. Second, I am not looking to work with 200 players, like, because nor do I have the strength or the bandwidth to, like, I don't have a 50-member panel, or like 50-member employees or things like that. But I wanted to keep it very limited. So I want to keep it to players that are not interested in our services, but more like we are interested in them. And then and then we handpick a certain type of talent. And when the fundamentals, when the basic criteria matches, is then the conversation, then what happens is, then I know कि उसका बेस और हमारा बेस सिमिलर थॉट्स पे है. अब उस बेस के ऊपर व्हाट डू वी बिल्ड. सो माय फाउंडेशन एंड हिज और हर फाउंडेशन आर at a good level, and from there how do we build.
Right.
So then that conversation helps me understand, okay, what is the type of personality this player is, what are the goals that he or she has,
Hmm.
what are the goals that we have for, you know
Them.
him and her, and then we take it. So that definition is important. And for me, my fundamental goals, if I will not reveal all of them, but it has to be with the intent you play the sport with. Like, so for me, what matters is, what is your intent of playing?
Hmm.
So things like that. And what areas do you want to excel in? Do you introspect or not? Because see, what happens is, in a lot of sports, and dealing with talent, what happens is, talent can go on cribbing. There are lots of talented people, but it could be like, my coach did not like me, my team did not support me, or XYZ, or 50 factors, but less of looking inward, trying to look for answers.
Hmm.
So I sort of like those individuals who are very inward looking, like they're very finding answers by themselves. How I can improve. My team didn't do well, my coach didn't play me in a certain position, but I am going to improve myself to be better.
Hmm.
So these are things that like, and that intent, and kisi ko, like I've had a lot of players, younger players, who've come and said, hey, I want to be a star. Everyone comes and says, I want to be a star. That's what I said. So if you lose your focus in terms of star, you want to become a star, money is a factor, fame is a factor, but all of that are factors. Your core circle has to be football.
Hmm.
So I ask a lot of these youngsters also, I give them examples and all of this also. But do you want to be a Robin Singh or do you want to be a Sunil Chetri? Simple.
Yeah.
As simple as that. Like how do you want your career to go? Like do you want, like, people, for you to be remembered as a successful football player, and then the other things, you know um, and things like that, like, so, like for me, like I'll tell you, I understood this really early. I must share this. um, the example I learned this from was Vijender Singh. Okay, now when Vijender Singh was coming in the scene, what he did with boxing was phenomenal. I really liked it. But as I grew older and I understood how does Vijender Singh thinks, I've never spoken to him, but I got the thought process of what he was shaping his personality and his career to go, um, was something that I was realized. Vijender Singh's priority was मैं roadies में जाऊं, I'm known, or whatever, जो भी. So I got that pretty much quickly. So I was like, ha, I would never work with Vijender Singh ever, ever. Not that he also wants to work with me, but ever. Like, my fundamentals are pretty strong. No chance I will.
Yeah.
So at a very early age, and it changes from players to players. A lot more mature players are, their self experience and defined really well.
Hmm.
So in that, I don't really have to talk, or they themselves are super smart to know how they see themselves and their careers. The challenge comes with the younger players, how and what you tell them, and there are times where you have to guide them, the different roles you have to play.
Right, that's fascinating stuff. I mean, just one particular last question in that sense. Have there been some books, movies, films, podcasts that have influenced the way you look at the world? You think about not just sport, but just on a broader level, that form your value systems and other things as well.
Of course, I've been influenced. Like uh, if I go to books, it could. I have a range. I'm not a massive reader, but I have a range in the subjects that I like. Um, from sports, like Cruyff is one of them. The Deal is one of them. Football Against the Enemy is one of them. These are very interesting books that have given me various perspectives about um, modern football in Turkey. There's a book, I'm forgetting the name. The Passion.
Okay. Yeah.
Passion is a book about modern Turkey and modern Turkish fans. And Turkey is an unbelievable place in terms
Yeah.
of football. Unbelievable. So it gave me a different. What one more thing sports has done for me is it gave me a worldwide view. Like, I might have not known a country or their culture or their thing, but just reading and being involved in the sport, I understood what is their culture. I understood what is their, how they function. So it gave me an overall world knowledge, and things like that. And then, apart from sports, like suppose individual biography, I loved Usain Bolt. Absolutely, it redefined me to think like the man before breaking the world record. 1 week before in Beijing was having 3,000 chicken nuggets. No, no, so these are books like that have like really I found very fascinating. Um, then I read books like Ikigai, Wabi Sabi, in terms of general philosophy, life, how do you live life, and things like that. Uh, imperfection is there is a perfection in imperfection, and things like that. So I've enjoyed that, and And I've read books like Into Thin Air when I want to be adventurous, Into the Wild and things like that, so that, and yeah, but again, it's a various range.
Yeah.
So that is there, and three people I've been massively influenced by, also in terms of business book. My godfather and someone that I really read a lot whenever I have questions, and especially sports business side of things, is Mark McCormack. You
Okay.
know, so Mark McCormack has two interesting books. One is called Selling, and one is What They Don't Teach You in Harvard Business School. So, and Mark McCormack, I don't know whether you know of him or not.
I've
Um,
seen the book. I haven't got to reading it, but that's on my reading
do you
list.
know
Yes.
who he is?
No, no.
Yeah, he's the founder of the biggest sports entertainment company in the world, called IMG.
Oh. Yeah.
So he's the guy that I really quite follow. So I read about him when I was in college, and I was, for me back then was, oh, if I work in the IMG, my life is set. You know. So then after reading him, I was like, I'm going to make my own
One
IMG.
IMG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he's the guy who changed golf in the world. So the IMG started with golf. He revolutionized golf and what it did in the US, and all
Hmm.
of that. So that book Selling from him is spot on, and What They Don't Teach You in Harvard Business School is perfect. So I'm
Yeah.
happy I'm not in Harvard Business School, and I'm happy whatever I've learned from him. So yeah, that's been for me. And three, I think, before I wrap up and everything, three most important people who my life, sportsmen who my life has been massively influenced by, um, has to be people who I've never met, who have gone way away from my generation. Only thing that I've done in-depth reading about has to be Muhammad Ali, has to be Maradona, and has to be Antonio Senna. So Senna impacted my life the most, I think.
Okay.
Muhammad Ali and Maradona are worldwide figures, but Senna is someone that impacted my life in a very strong way. And it has nothing to do with me watching Formula One or anything, but it's that personality and that athlete, that human being. Uh, I think these three top priorities where they have made a massive influence in my life. So yeah.
Abhishek, listen, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I've loved every
Same
bit of
here.
it.
Same.
Thank you for coming on, wasting so much time with me. If there's anything you'd like to plug, last bit, any social media handles you'd like to point my listeners towards, feel free to.
Nothing as such. I think what you're doing, Ishan, is pretty cool. And having a diversified range of people who come to your podcast. So I hope your listeners like the conversation that we had. And yeah, just basics. I'm not going to use this platform to promote my agency or myself. But if y'all ever want to get in touch or know anything about sports, please get in touch with Ishan. He can direct it to me, or you can follow me as on Instagram as Abhishek Sports Agent, and you'll see me.
No,
And
see, listen, that's great. I look forward to our next conversation as well. All
perfect.
right.
I'll also
Yeah.
look forward to that. All right, buddy.
Great. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye. Bye.